The clock on the nightstand glows, 3:17 in the morning. The house is still, wrapped in the deep, quiet velvet of the night. But inside your mind, a storm is raging. The silence of the world outside only makes the noise inside louder, more insistent. A deadline looms at work, its shadow stretching across the week. A careless word from a friend yesterday plays on a loop, each repetition sharper than the last. There is the weight of bills, the quiet hum of financial anxiety, the amorphous fear of an uncertain future. Above it all, a voice presides. It is the voice of the inner critic, the tireless narrator of your perceived failures, the prosecutor who presents an endless list of your shortcomings. It reminds you of what you should have done, what you failed to say, and how you are not enough. You turn over, rearranging the pillow for the 10th time, as if a new position could somehow silence the relentless monologue in your own head. If this scene feels familiar, if the exhaustion of this inner battle resonates deep in your bones, know that you are not alone. This is not a personal failing, but a profound symptom of our modern condition. We live in a world that never sleeps, a world of endless notifications, of constant connection that somehow leaves us feeling more disconnected than ever. We are conditioned to believe that our value lies in our productivity, that busyness is a badge of honor, and that stillness is a form of laziness. This relentless external pressure fuels an equally relentless internal one. We are left spiritually fatigued, mentally drained, our minds becoming a landscape of anxiety and stress. We try to fight the voice, to push it away, to argue with it, but this only gives it more strength. The struggle itself becomes the source of our suffering, and we yearn for a true, deep, and restorative rest that seems forever out of reach. But what if there was another way? A way that does not involve fighting, or struggling, or suppressing? What if there was a path, walked by countless others for over 2,500 years, that leads not to a forced silence, but to a gentle quiet? This is the promise of Buddhist wisdom. It is not a quick fix, nor is it a dogma to be blindly believed. It is a set of practical, compassionate, and profound tools for understanding the nature of our own minds. It offers a method to learn how to watch the storm without being swept away by it, to understand its origins, and to finally, gently, calm the winds and quiet the waves. The goal is not to defeat the inner voice, but to change our relationship to it entirely, to learn to soothe it with a radical and healing compassion. This entire journey, this path toward a quiet mind and a compassionate sleep, begins with a single, revolutionary realization, a simple truth that can change everything. You are not the voice in your head. We have given a name to the voice that haunts the quiet hours, the relentless narrator who lives inside our skull. But to truly understand it, we must look to an ancient and incredibly insightful metaphor from the East. The Buddha described the untamed human mind as kapacita, which translates as monkey mind. This is not a casual or dismissive term. It is a profoundly accurate diagnosis. Picture a wild monkey in a dense jungle. It never stays still. It shrieks and chatters. Its limbs are a blur of motion as it swings from one branch to another, never resting, never at peace. It sees a piece of fruit on a distant tree and immediately leaps towards it, driven by impulse. It hears a sound in the undergrowth and screeches in alarm, whether the threat is real or imagined. It is constantly agitated, forever reacting to the world around it without thought or reflection. This is the state of our own minds when left untrained. The branches of the tree are our thoughts. Our monkey mind leaps from a memory of a past embarrassment to a worry about a future meeting. It swings from a flash of anger at a slow driver to a surge of desire for a product seen in an advertisement. It never stays in the present moment, on the branch where it currently is. Its existence is a frantic, exhausting journey through time, from the dead branches of regret to the imagined branches of anxiety. This inner monkey chatters incessantly. It is the voice of self-judgment, the voice of comparison, the voice that tells you what others must be thinking about you. It creates elaborate stories, worst-case scenarios, and replays conversations with different endings, all in the blink of an eye. And just like a real monkey, it is easily distracted. A notification on your phone, a headline on a news site, a snippet of overheard gossip, these are all shiny objects that instantly capture its attention, pulling it away from any sense of calm or focus. Now, take this ancient metaphor of a jungle creature and place it in the context of our 21st century world. We have, in effect, built the perfect jungle for the monkey mind to thrive in, a digital ecosystem designed to keep it in a state of perpetual agitation. The modern ideal of multitasking is a myth. It is simply the monkey mind being encouraged to swing between the branches of an open document, an incoming email, a text message, and a social media feed, all at the same time. The result is not increased productivity, but increased stress, a fractured attention span, and a feeling of being constantly busy, yet achieving very little of substance. Our digital devices, with their dopamine-driven feedback loops of likes, shares, and comments, are like a constant supply of sugary treats for the monkey, making it more hyperactive, more addicted to the next stimulus. The culture of hustle and constant self-optimization tells us that a quiet mind is an idle mind, an unproductive asset, and so we feed the monkey. We reward its frantic energy, and then we wonder why we cannot sleep at night, why we feel a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety beneath the surface of our days. We have created a world that validates the monkey's chaos, and we are paying the price with our own inner peace. Faced with this internal chaos, our natural, Western-conditioned instinct is to fight it. We try to suppress the voice, to command it into silence. Just stop thinking about it, we tell ourselves. Be positive, don't worry. We try to wrestle the monkey to the ground and force it into submission. But this approach is not only ineffective, it is profoundly counterproductive. Imagine a lake whose surface is disturbed by ripples. If you try to flatten the ripples by slapping the water with your hand, what happens? You only create more turmoil, more waves, more chaos. The act of resistance itself is an agitation. When you fight a thought, you give it energy. You are engaging with it, wrestling with it, and in doing so, you are validating its importance. The command, "Stop worrying," is itself another thought, another branch for the monkey to grab onto, often leading to a new spiral of thought about why you are failing to stop worrying. The monkey does not understand aggression. It only responds to it with more fear and more erratic behavior. Trying to silence your mind with force is like shouting at a terrified animal to be calm. The volume and violence of your command only intensifies its panic. So what is the alternative? The path of wisdom begins not with a fight, but with a radical shift in strategy. Consider this story. A wise elder wished to understand the nature of a wild monkey that lived in the forest near her home. Her first attempts were based on force and control. She chased it with a net, but the monkey was too agile. She set traps baited with fruit, but the monkey was too clever. She yelled at it to come down from the trees, but the monkey only shrieked back and climbed higher. Every effort to control the monkey left the elder exhausted, and the monkey more distrustful and wild than before. Recognizing her failure, she decided to try a different way. The next morning, she simply went to the edge of the forest, found a comfortable spot to sit, and became still. She did not look for the monkey. She did not call to it. She simply sat, breathing quietly, observing the world around her. She did this day after day. At first, the monkey kept its distance, watching her with suspicion, but the elder's stillness was unwavering. Her presence was calm and non-threatening. Slowly, curiosity began to replace the monkey's fear. It started to inch closer, day by day. It would watch her from a nearby branch, observing her quiet breathing. One day, the elder gently placed a piece of fruit on the ground, a few feet away from her. She made no move towards it. She simply sat. After a long, patient wait, the monkey finally scampered down, quickly grabbed the fruit, and scurried back to the safety of its tree. This was the breakthrough. The taming had begun, not through force, but through patience, stillness, and a gentle, non-demanding offering. This parable holds the entire secret. To quiet the monkey mind, you must stop chasing it. You must stop fighting it. You must become the wise elder. The practice begins with you taking a seat, not physically chasing, but mentally stepping back. You become the observer, the silent watcher of your own mind. When the monkey of anxiety begins to chatter about the future, you don't argue with it, you simply notice it. Ah, you say to yourself, with a gentle, scientific curiosity, there is the thought of worry. When the monkey of regret starts swinging back to a past mistake, you don't scold it, you simply acknowledge it. There is the thought of regret. You are not the monkey. You are the stillness that is watching the monkey. You are not the thoughts. You are the awareness within which the thoughts arise and pass away. This simple, yet profound shift in perspective creates a space. A small gap at first, but a space nonetheless, between the observer and the observed, between your true self and the chaotic chatter of your mind. In this space, there is peace. In this space, there is freedom. We have now identified the problem. We have given it a name and seen its nature. We have understood that our old way of fighting it is futile, and we have discovered the first step on a new path, the path of patient, compassionate observation. Now that we have seen the symptom so clearly, we can turn to the Buddha's formal diagnosis of the human condition, a framework that will guide the rest of our journey toward healing. Having recognized the chattering, restless state of our minds as the monkey mind, we can now appreciate the profound wisdom of the Buddha's first sermon. He did not present himself as a god demanding worship, nor did he offer a set of divine commandments. Instead, he acted as a spiritual physician. He saw the pervasive disease of the human condition, and like any great doctor, he laid out a clear, logical, and practical framework for healing. This framework is known as the Four Noble Truths. These are not articles of faith to be accepted blindly. They are four realities, four profound observations about life that he invites us to investigate and verify for ourselves through our own direct experience. They form a complete medical diagnosis, identifying the sickness, discovering its cause, confirming a cure exists, and then writing the prescription. The first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. This ancient Pali word, dukkha, is often translated into English as suffering, but this translation is both incomplete and overly dramatic. It conjures images of terrible tragedy and intense pain. And while dukkha certainly includes those things, its meaning is far broader, more subtle, and much more universal. A better translation might be dissatisfaction, unease, stress, or the persistent feeling that things are somehow not quite right, slightly off kilter. It is the friction that exists between our desires and the reality of the world. It is the background hum of anxiety that underlies even our most pleasant moments. Dukkha is the obvious pain of a headache, of grieving a loss, or of receiving a harsh criticism. But it is also the subtle stress of being stuck in traffic when you are running late. It is the quiet disappointment you feel when a wonderful vacation comes to an end. It is the low-level anxiety of waiting for someone to reply to an important message. It is the frustration of technology that doesn't work, the unease of social comparison, and the simple, unavoidable reality that our bodies age and are susceptible to illness. The first noble truth is not a pessimistic statement that life is miserable. It is a realistic and courageous acknowledgement that this inherent friction, this dukkha, is a fundamental, unavoidable part of the human experience, as long as our minds remain untrained. To deny this truth is to live in a state of delusion, forever surprised and dismayed when life doesn't perfectly conform to our wishes. The first step to healing any ailment is to bravely and clearly acknowledge its existence. The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of dukkha. Once the sickness is identified, the physician must find its cause. The Buddha saw that the root cause of our dissatisfaction is not the world itself, it is not the traffic, the illness, or the criticism. The root cause lies within our own minds. He gave this cause a name, tanaha, a word that translates as thirst, craving, or clinging. It is a deep, primal, and relentless drive within us to seek pleasure, to avoid pain, and to establish a solid sense of self. This thirst manifests in three primary ways. First, there is the thirst for sense pleasures, the craving for delicious food, for beautiful sights, for pleasant sounds, for praise, for comfort. We chase these experiences, believing they will bring us lasting happiness, but their pleasure is fleeting, and when they fade, dukkha returns. Second, there is the thirst for existence, the craving to be something more, to become more successful, more famous, more loved. This is the endless striving of the ego, the fear of insignificance, the clinging to our identity and our achievements. It is the fuel for so much of our modern anxiety, the feeling that we are never quite enough as we are. Finally, there is the third kind of thirst, the thirst for non-existence. This is the other side of craving, known as aversion. It is the desperate desire to get rid of what is unpleasant, to push away pain, to escape difficult situations, to destroy what we hate. It is the anger that arises when our will is thwarted, the fear that grips us when we feel threatened. To understand this dynamic, the Buddha offered a powerful parable, the story of the two arrows. Imagine you are walking through a forest, and you are struck in the leg by an arrow. This first arrow is a painful event. It is unavoidable. In life, first arrows will always fly. There will be sickness, loss, and disappointment. This is dukkha. But then, you look at the wound, and you react with a storm of mental anguish. Why me? This is terrible. I can't believe this happened. My whole journey is ruined. You have just shot a second arrow into your own leg, right next to the first. This second arrow is our reaction. It is our resistance to the first arrow. It is our tanha, our craving for the reality to be different than it is. The first arrow causes physical pain, but the second arrow causes mental suffering. The Buddha taught that while we can never have complete control over the first arrows of life, we have the absolute capacity to stop shooting ourselves with the second, third, and fourth arrows of panic, blame, and despair. Most of our prolonged misery comes not from life's events, but from our reactions to them. The third noble truth follows logically. It is the truth of the cessation of dukkha. This is the good news, the hopeful prognosis from our physician. There is an end to suffering. If the cause of our dissatisfaction is thirst and clinging, then the cure must be the cessation of that thirst. This state of cessation is called nirvana. Again, this word is often misunderstood in the West as a kind of blissful, cloud-filled heaven one goes to after death. But its literal meaning is to extinguish or to blow out. What is extinguished? The three fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, the very fires that are fueled by our unquenchable thirst. Nirvana is not a place, but a state of mind. It is a state of profound peace, unshakable calm, and supreme liberation that is available to us right here, in this very life. It is the end of the second arrow. It is the experience of a mind that no longer clings to pleasure or pushes away pain, but rests in a state of balanced, open-hearted awareness. It is the state of the wise elder who sits peacefully, no longer agitated by the antics of the monkey mind. It is attainable. This leads directly to the fourth noble truth, the truth of the path to the cessation of dukkha. Having confirmed that a cure exists, the physician now writes the prescription. This prescription is a practical, step-by-step guide to life known as the Noble Eightfold Path. It is a middle way between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. This path is not a linear sequence of steps, but 8 interconnected aspects of life that should be developed simultaneously. They are often grouped into 3 categories. The first is wisdom, which includes right view-seeing, reality as it truly is, understanding these 4 noble truths and right intention, the resolve to cultivate kindness and let go of craving and aversion. The second category is ethical conduct, which includes right speech, speaking truthfully and kindly, right action, behaving in ways that do not cause harm, and right livelihood, earning a living in a way that is not harmful to oneself or others. The third, and for our purposes, most crucial category, is mental discipline. This includes right effort, the gentle persistence required to abandon unskillful thoughts and cultivate skillful ones. Right mindfulness, the moment-to-moment awareness of our body, feelings, and thoughts. and right concentration, the ability to steady the mind in a state of focused calm. This eightfold path is the treatment plan. It is the comprehensive guide to blowing out the fires of suffering and cultivating a life of peace, wisdom, and compassion. The journey we have embarked on through this exploration is, in essence, a journey along this path, with a special focus on developing the mental discipline that allows wisdom to arise. We have received the diagnosis. We have been told that our condition is not terminal. We have been handed the prescription. Now, we must begin the treatment. And the very first instruction, the foundational practice upon which all other mental training is built, requires us to turn our attention away from the grand complexities of philosophy and toward the simplest, most fundamental reality of our existence, the feeling of our own breath. We have walked through the Buddha's diagnosis, the Four Noble Truths, which, like a medical chart, lays out the nature of our disease, its cause, the possibility of a cure, and the prescription for healing, the Noble Eightfold Path. Within that path lies the heart of our practice, the cultivation of mental discipline, and the gateway to all mental discipline is the practice of right mindfulness. This may sound lofty and complex, but the starting point is the most simple, humble, and accessible thing imaginable. In the midst of the jungle of the monkey mind, with its frantic swinging from past to future, we must ask, where can we find a single point of stability? Where is the one place we can rest our attention that is not lost in the chaos of thought? The answer is as close as your own nose. It is the breath. The breath is the perfect anchor for the wandering mind, for several profound reasons. Firstly, it is always with you. From the moment of your birth to the moment of your death, it is your constant, faithful companion. You do not need any special equipment. You do not need to be in a quiet room or a beautiful temple. You can be on a crowded bus, in a stressful board meeting, or standing in line at the grocery store. Your anchor is always available, a portable refuge you can access in any moment. Secondly, and most importantly, the breath is always in the present. You cannot take a breath that is in the past, nor can you take one that is in the future. Each inhalation and each exhalation is happening right now. Therefore, by placing your attention on the raw, physical sensation of breathing, you are, by definition, pulling your awareness out of the imaginary realms of regret and anxiety and tethering it firmly to the reality of the present moment. This is a direct and powerful antidote to the monkey mind's favorite pastime of time travel. Thirdly, the breath is generally a neutral object, unlike our thoughts and memories, which are often laden with heavy emotional charges of joy, sorrow, anger, or fear. The breath is just a physical process. It offers a safe, stable, and relatively calm harbor in which to rest the mind when the seas of emotion are stormy. And finally, the breath is an honest mirror of our inner state. When you are anxious or angry, your breath becomes short, shallow, and rapid. When you are calm and relaxed, your breath naturally becomes deep, slow, and gentle. The breath and the mind are intimately connected. By simply learning to observe the breath without judgment, you gain an accurate barometer of your mental weather. And by gently resting your attention there, you can begin to calm the rhythm of the breath, which in turn sends a powerful signal of safety and calm back to the nervous system, quietening the mind. So how do we begin this practice? The instructions are beautifully simple, though not always easy. First, find a comfortable posture. You can sit on a cushion on the floor, or you can sit upright in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. The important thing is that your spine is relatively straight, in a posture of dignity and alertness, but not stiff or rigid. Allow your hands to rest comfortably on your lap. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, you can leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze on the floor a few feet in front of you. Now, bring your attention to the feeling of the breath. You are not being asked to think about breathing, but to feel the direct, physical sensations of it. You might choose to rest your awareness at the tip of the nostrils, noticing the subtle coolness of the air as it enters and the slight warmth as it leaves. Or, you might prefer to place your attention on your abdomen, feeling the gentle rise as you breathe in and the gentle fall as you breathe out. Choose one of these spots and let your attention rest there. There is no need to control the breath, to make it deeper or slower. Your only job is to allow the breath to be exactly as it is and to feel it. Feel the entire duration of one in-breath. Feel the entire duration of one out-breath. That is the entire instruction. Now, something will happen. It is not a question of if, but when. After a few breaths, maybe even just one, your mind will wander. The monkey mind will spot a branch and leap. A thought will arise. What should I have for dinner tonight? Or did I remember to send that email? Or my leg is starting to itch. The mind has wandered away from the breath. This is the single most important moment in your practice. It is crucial that you understand this. The mind wandering is not a mistake. It is not a sign that you are a bad meditator or that you are failing. The mind wandering is simply what minds do. That is their nature. The true practice, the moment of genuine mindfulness, is the moment you realize the mind has wandered. That aha moment when you wake up from the daydream is a small victory. It is a flash of pure awareness. When this happens, and it will happen again and again, the instruction is to respond with 3 simple steps. First, silently and gently, acknowledge where the mind has gone. You can label it softly in your head. Thinking, planning, worrying. This acknowledges the thought without getting caught in its story. Second, and this is the key, let go of the thought without any judgment or frustration. Do not scold yourself. Do not get annoyed. Simply release it. Third, with infinite gentleness, guide your attention back to your anchor, back to the feeling of the breath at the nostrils or the abdomen. Imagine you are training a new puppy. Your intention is to teach it to sit quietly on a small rug in the corner of a room. You gently place the puppy on the rug. It sits for a second, then immediately gets up and trots off to sniff a table leg. What do? You do not yell at the puppy. You do not punish it or tell it that it is a bad puppy. That would only make it anxious and fearful of you and the rug. Instead, you smile, you walk over, and you gently, patiently, lovingly pick up the puppy and place it back on the rug. A moment later, it wanders off again, this time to chase a dust bunny. Again, you gently guide it back. You might have to do this 100 times. Your mind is this puppy, full of energy and curiosity. The rug is your breath. Your practice is the gentle, patient, and endlessly repeated act of guiding the mind back to the breath. The tone you use with your own mind should be the same tone you would use with this beloved puppy, one of kindness, patience, and gentle firmness. With every repetition of this cycle, the breath, the mind wandering, the gentle return, you are fundamentally retraining your brain. You are strengthening your mindfulness muscle, your capacity for what scientists call meta-awareness, the ability to observe your own mental processes without being automatically swept away by them. You are carving out a new neural pathway, the pathway of returning to the present moment. Over time, the breath becomes more than just an object of meditation. It becomes a sanctuary. In the middle of a chaotic day, when stress levels are rising, you can consciously choose to pause and connect with 3 or 4 breaths. In that small act, you bring yourself back from the brink. You re-establish your connection to the present, and you find a pocket of peace amidst the storm. You are no longer a helpless victim of the monkey mind's whims. You have found your anchor, and you know how to use it. Having established this foundational stability, this home base in the quiet reality of the present moment, we now have a secure platform. From this place of anchored awareness, we can begin to expand our investigation, turning this same gentle, mindful attention to the very vessel that carries us through life, our own body, which so often holds the unspoken, unheeded stories of our stress and our history. Having discovered the breath as our anchor to the present moment, we have established a place of relative stability, a home base from which we can safely explore the wider territory of our experience. Now, we turn our attention from the anchor to the ship itself, the physical vessel that carries us through life, our body. For many of us in the modern world, the body has become like a neglected house. We live our lives almost entirely in the small, noisy attic of the thinking mind, largely unaware of the vast, silent rooms that lie beneath. We pay attention to the body only when an alarm bell rings, a sharp pain, a sudden illness, a chronic ache that refuses to be ignored. The rest of the time, we treat it as little more than a vehicle for carrying our heads from one meeting to another. This creates a profound sense of disconnection, an alienation from our own physical being. The practice of the body scan is a journey of coming home. It is the simple, radical act of deciding to explore the entire house, to walk slowly through every room, turning on the lights, and gently noticing what has been stored in the corners and hidden in the shadow. Before we begin this journey, we must first appreciate the undeniable truth of the mind-body connection. They are not two separate entities that occasionally interact. They are a single, unified system. Your thoughts and emotions are written directly into the language of your flesh. When you feel anxious about a public speaking engagement, the thought "I'm not prepared" is not just an abstract idea. It manifests as a churning in your stomach, a dryness in your mouth, and a cold sweat on your palms. When you are caught in anger, the judgment that was unfair translates into a clenched jaw, a tightened fist, and shoulders that creep up towards your ears, preparing for a fight. Grief is not just a sad story in the mind. It is a palpable heaviness in the chest, a physical ache that can feel as real as any injury. Over years, our unprocessed emotions, our chronic worries, and our unhealed traumas become stored in the body as muscular tension. We build a kind of physical armor out of our history: stiff necks, sore lower backs, tight hips. This armor is created unconsciously, and it is held in place by a mind that is too busy or too afraid to listen. The body scan is the practice of listening. To begin, if it is possible, find a place where you can lie down comfortably on your back, perhaps on a mat on the floor or on your bed. Lying down sends a signal to the body that it is safe to let go. Have a blanket nearby if you might get cold. Allow your legs to be uncrossed and your arms to rest alongside your body, perhaps with the palms facing up, a gesture of receptivity. Take a few moments to settle in, feeling the weight of your body making contact with the surface beneath you. And just as we did before, connect with the gentle rhythm of your breath, using it as the initial anchor to bring you into the present moment. Our journey begins at the furthest point from the busy mind, the toes of your left foot. Without wiggling them, simply bring the spotlight of your awareness to this small part of your body. See if you can feel the sensations that are present there. You might notice the feeling of a sock, the pressure of one toe against another, a sense of warmth, coolness, tingling, or perhaps you feel very little at all. There is no right or wrong sensation. The intention is not to feel something specific, but to feel whatever is actually there. After a moment, allow your awareness to expand, to flood the entire left foot, the sole, the heel where it makes contact with the floor, the top of the foot. Just feel. Then, slowly, begin to move this spotlight of kind, curious attention up your body. Bring it to your left lower leg, noticing the shape of the calf muscle and the long line of the shin bone. Move your awareness to the knee, a complex joint, feeling it from the inside out. Continue up to the thigh, one of the largest muscles in the body, feeling its weight and density. And now, shift your attention across to the toes of your right foot and begin the same patient, deliberate journey up your right leg. As you move your awareness through your body, the key is the quality of your attention. It is not a harsh, analytical spotlight. It is a soft, warm, accepting glow, like the light of a candle. It is the attention of a loving parent checking on a sleeping child. When you encounter a sensation of tightness, as you might in your lower back or shoulders, the invitation is not to judge it or fight it. Do not think, "Oh, my shoulders are so tense. I need to relax them." This is just more thinking. Instead, simply acknowledge the sensation. Ah, there is a feeling of tightness here. Greet it with curiosity. What does this tightness actually feel like? Is it hot? Is it sharp? Is it a dull ache? You are simply gathering data with a kind and gentle heart. As you rest your awareness on an area of tension, you can try a small experiment. As you breathe in, imagine the breath traveling all the way down to that spot, creating space and softness around it. As you breathe out, imagine the tension softening, melting, letting go, even just 5%. But if nothing changes, that is perfectly fine too. The primary goal is awareness, not change. The paradox is that this unconditional, non-judgmental awareness is precisely what allows change to happen. By shining the light of awareness on a habitually tense muscle, you are interrupting the unconscious neurological signal that is telling it to stay tight. It is like discovering your hand has been clenched into a fist for an hour without you realizing it. The moment you become aware of the fist, you have a choice. The awareness itself creates the possibility of release. When you stop fighting the tension and simply allow it to be there, held in a spacious and kind awareness, it often loses its reason for being. It has been heard, it has been acknowledged, and with that acknowledgement, it can finally begin to let go. Continue this journey up through the pelvis, the abdomen with its soft vulnerability, the chest and the subtle beating of your heart within it. Scan across your shoulders and down each arm, all the way to the tips of your fingers. Pay special attention to your hands, where so much activity and doing is centered. Then move to the neck, the Jawa common warehouse for stress, and allow the small muscles around your mouth and eyes to soften. Feel your forehead, your scalp, and finally, the very top of your head. For a few moments, be aware of your body as a whole, a single, unified field of sensation. Breathing. You have returned home. The body scan is far more than a simple relaxation technique. It is a profound practice of reinhabitation. It is a healing of the split between mind and body. With regular practice, you begin to live in your body in a new way. You become more grounded, more present. You start to notice the subtle signals of stress earlier in the day, the first clenching of the jaw, the initial tightening of the shoulder sand. You can respond with a conscious breath before it escalates into a headache or a backache. You are no longer living in the attic, oblivious to the state of the house. You have explored every room. You know its creaks, its warm spots, its hidden tensions. You have learned to listen to the oldest language there is, the pre-verbal language of pure sensation. Having explored this physical landscape and anchored ourselves in the felt sense of the body, we are now prepared to investigate an even more subtle and often more volatile territory that lives within this same vessel, the world of feelings and the powerful, ever-shifting currents of our emotions. Having anchored ourselves in the physical reality of the body, we have built a stable platform from which to observe the more turbulent currents of our inner world. As you practice the body scan, you noticed a landscape of pure sensation, warmth, tingling, pressure, tightness. The next layer of our experience, which is woven directly into these physical sensations, is what Buddhist psychology calls Vedana, a term often translated as feeling tone. This is not yet a complex emotion like anger or joy. It is something more fundamental, more primal. It is the immediate, automatic, and usually unconscious label that our mind attaches to every single moment of experience, sorting it into one of three simple categories: pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Think of it as the mind's basic triage system. A pleasant feeling tone, or sukha, arises when we experience something agreeable: the warmth of the sun on our skin, the taste of a sweet strawberry, the sound of beautiful music. The mind's instant, deeply conditioned reaction is, I like this. I want more of this. I don't want this to end. This is the very seed of craving and clinging. An unpleasant feeling tone, or dukkha, arises from a disagreeable experience: the blare of a car horn, the pain of a stubbed toe, the feeling of being cold and damp. The mind's immediate reaction is, I don't like this. Make it stop. I want to get away from this. This is the seed of aversion and hatred. The third category is the neutral feeling tone, adukkha sukha, and it is, in fact, how we experience the vast majority of our lives. It is the feeling of your hands resting in your lap right now, the sight of the wall in front of you, the hum of a distant appliance. It is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. The mind's conditioned reaction to neutral feelings is to ignore them, to space out, to become bored, and immediately begin seeking something more, stimulating, something pleasant to grasp, or something unpleasant to resist. This is the seed of delusion, of not paying attention to the reality of our lives. Our entire reactive existence, the frantic swinging of the monkey mind, is built upon this constant, lightning-fast sorting of life into these three boxes, and our subsequent automatic impulse to cling, to push away, or to ignore. The practice of mindfulness of feelings begins with noticing this simple sorting process as it happens, before it blossoms into a full-blown emotional drama. This blossoming is the next stage. A raw, unpleasant feeling, tone say, a tightness in the chest is just a sensation. But when the mind combines that sensation with a thought, a story, it becomes a complex emotion. If you combine the tightness in your chest with the thought, I am going to fail this important presentation tomorrow, the result is the emotion we call anxiety. If you combine a feeling of heat rising in your face with the thought, that person just deliberately insulted me, the result is the emotion we call anger. And if you combine a pleasant, light feeling in your body with the thought, I am safe and loved, the result is the emotion of joy. This understanding is profoundly empowering. It reveals that emotions are not solid, monolithic entities that descend upon us from nowhere. They are compound events, constructed from raw, physical sensations, and the narrative thoughts we attach to them. By learning to see the ingredients, we are no longer so intimidated by the final product. The most effective way to understand our relationship with these constructed emotions is through the metaphor of the ocean. Your mind, in its natural state, is like a vast, deep ocean. Emotions are like waves that travel across its surface. They are not the ocean itself. They are temporary phenomena, natural expressions of the ocean's energy. These waves are generated by winds, which can be external events, a stressful day at work, internal patterns, our deep-seated conditioning from the past. A wave begins as a small swell, gathers energy, rises up, and takes on a distinct form, a towering wave of grief, a crashing wave of fury, a gentle wave of happiness. It holds this form for a short time, and then, inevitably, it loses its energy, subsides, and dissolves back into the vastness of the ocean from which it came. No wave is permanent. Our fundamental error is that we don't understand this. We either try to act as a giant seawall, attempting to stop the waves from ever reaching us, an act of suppression that is both exhausting and futile, or, more commonly, we completely identify with the wave. We become the anger, we become the sadness. When the wave crashes, we are crashed. We are tossed and turned in its violent surf, losing all sense of perspective, completely at its mercy. The practice of mindfulness offers a third option. It teaches us to become a skilled surfer. A surfer does not try to stop the ocean. A surfer respects the power of the waves. They learn to watch the horizon, to see the waves as they form, to feel their energy, and to develop the balance and skill to ride them with awareness until they naturally, and always, pass. So how do we learn to surf? The practice is one of brave and compassionate attention. When you feel a strong emotion begin to swell, the first step is simply to acknowledge it, see the wave forming. The second step is to gently name it, either in your head or as a soft whisper. You might say, there is anger, or this is what anxiety feels like, or even just a single word label, sadness, sadness. Notice the subtle but crucial difference between saying, there is anger, and saying, I am angry. The first phrasing turns the emotion into an object of your awareness. It creates a space between you and the wave. The second phrasing, I am angry, fuses your entire identity with the temporary energy of the wave. Naming it gives you perspective. Next, instead of getting lost in the story of why you are angry or sad, bring your attention directly into your body and investigate the raw, physical sensations of the emotion. Where does this anxiety live? Is it a fluttering in your stomach? A tightness in your throat? Where is the joy? Is it a warmth spreading through your chest? An openness in your face? By grounding the emotion in the body, you anchor your experience in tangible reality and disempower the abstract narrative that is fueling the wave. The final and most courageous step is to allow the wave to be there. This means making space for the uncomfortable physical sensations without needing them to disappear immediately. You breathe with the tightness in your chest. You offer a kind, accepting awareness to the heat in your face. You trust the universal law of impermanence. This too shall pass. You are now riding the wave. Another powerful way to view this is through the parable of the sky and the clouds. Your true nature, your core of awareness, is like the vast, open, clear blue sky. It is always present, spacious, and untouched. Emotions are like the weather. Some days, the clouds are white, light, and fluffy, like moments of joy. Other days, dark, heavy storm clouds of grief or anger roll in, obscuring the blue for a while. They may bring thunder, lightning, and rain, but no matter how violent the storm, the clouds never stain or damage the sky. They are simply passing through. The sky remains the sky. Our practice is to remember that we are the sky, not the weather. We can learn to host all kinds of weather, all kinds of clouds, without identifying with them. We are the spacious awareness in which all emotions arise and pass away. The ultimate gift of this practice, of learning to surf the waves and to remember you are the sky, is the creation of a sacred pause. When we are fused with an emotion, the space between a stimulus, a critical remark, and our response, lashing out, is zero. It is an instantaneous, unconscious reaction. By observing the emotion, naming it, feeling it in the body, and allowing it to be, we create a precious gap. In that gap, freedom is born. In that gap, we can take a breath. In that gap, wisdom has a chance to arise. We can see the wave of anger, feel its powerful energy, and choose not to be swept away. We can choose a different response, one that is aligned with our deeper values of kindness and understanding. We have reclaimed our power from the grip of automatic, emotional reactivity. Having learned to observe the body and the feelings that flow through it, we are now ready to turn our attention to the very source of the stories that generate these feelings, the ceaseless, flowing river of our thoughts. We have journeyed inward, from the stabilizing anchor of the breath to the physical landscape of the body, and through the shifting ocean of our feelings. Now, we arrive at the very heart of the storm, the source of the narratives that shape our reality, the thinking mind itself. This is perhaps the most subtle and challenging stage of our practice, yet it holds the key to the most profound liberation. We are about to investigate a statement that may sound, at first, completely counterintuitive. You are not your thoughts. For most of us, this idea is radical. We live our lives completely fused with our inner monologue. We are the voice that worries, the voice that plans, the voice that judges, the voice that remembers. To suggest that we are not, that voice seems to question the very foundation of who we believe ourselves to be. Yet, this disidentification is the essential step towards silencing the noise and finding true inner peace. To begin, we must understand the nature of a thought. We tend to experience our thoughts as deeply personal proclamations, issued from a central command center, the me that is in charge. But from a contemplative perspective, thoughts are better understood as impersonal, mental events. They are like weather patterns, arising from a vast and complex system of causes and conditions. A thought appears in your consciousness because of what you ate for breakfast, the conversation you had yesterday, a memory from childhood, your current hormonal balance, and 1,000 other influences. Your brain is a thought-generating organ. That is its biological function, just as the heart's function is to beat. It produces thoughts continuously. To take every single thought it produces as a statement of ultimate truth, or as a direct reflection of our essential self, is the primary source of our suffering. The thought arises first, a fleeting mental event, and then the sense of I rushes in to claim ownership, saying, I think this, or I am worried. The practice is to learn to see the thought simply as a thought, a momentary flicker of energy in the vast space of the mind, before this act of appropriation takes place. To help us make this crucial shift in perspective, we can use several powerful metaphors. We have already spoken of the sky and the clouds in relation to emotion, and it is even more potent here. Imagine your awareness as the vast, boundless, clear blue sky. Your thoughts are the clouds. Some are light and wispy, fleeting ideas that are barely there. Some are big, white, puffy clouds of pleasant daydreams and fantasies. And some are dark, heavy, ominous storm clouds of obsessive worry or self-criticism. As the sky, your job is not to interfere with the weather. You do not try to grab onto the pleasant white clouds and hold them in place, nor do you try to furiously push away the dark storm clouds. You simply allow them all to drift through your vast expanse. You recognize that the clouds are not the sky. The sky is the space in which the clouds appear, and it remains unstained and unchanged, no matter how dramatic the weather. Another powerful image is that of sitting on a riverbank. You find a comfortable, stable spot on the grass, and you watch the river of your mind flow by. This river carries all manner of things. It carries green leaves of simple, passing thoughts. It carries tangled branches of complex plans and ideas. It carries dark, heavy, waterlogged logs of painful memories. And sometimes, it carries beautiful, colorful flowers of joy and inspiration. Your entire life, your habit has been to jump into the river the moment something interesting or frightening appears. When the log of a painful memory floats by, you leap in and grapple with it, getting tumbled in the current. When a beautiful flower appears, you jump in to possess it, only to find it withers in your grasp as the river flows on. The practice of mindfulness is to simply remain on the bank. You stay seated. You watch the contents of the stream go by. You notice the leaf. You see the log, you appreciate the flower, and you let them all continue on their journey downstream. You have not jumped in. You are resting in the stillness of the bank, witnessing the flow without being carried away by it. So how do we practice this? How do we learn to sit on the riverbank? We begin, as always, with our anchor. We rest our attention on the feeling of the breath. Inevitably, a thought will arise and, like a fish tugging on a line, it will pull your attention away. The moment you notice this has happened, the moment you wake up from being lost in the thought is the moment of mindfulness. Now, instead of being frustrated, you have an opportunity to practice. You can gently and silently give the thought a label. The label is not an analysis. It is a simple, soft, spoken acknowledgement of the category of thought. If you were thinking about your to-do list, you might label it planning. If you were replaying an argument, you could label it remembering or worrying. If you were criticizing yourself, you could label it judging. This simple act of labeling is incredibly powerful. It prevents you from getting entangled in the content, the story of the thought. It transforms the thought from being a personal reality you are living inside of into a mental event you are observing. It is the difference between being lost in a movie and suddenly realizing you are sitting in a theater, watching images on a screen. After you have gently labeled the thought, you release it, and with the same kindness you would show to a wandering puppy, you guide your awareness back to the anchor of the breath. This cycle breath, thought, notice, label, release, return is the core workout for the mind. As you practice this, you will notice certain challenges. You will have moments where you think, I can't stop thinking. This isn't working. Remember, the goal is not to stop thinking. A mind without thoughts is an unrealistic and ultimately unhelpful goal. The goal is to change your relationship with your thoughts. The goal is simply to know that you are thinking. When you are thinking, you will also get lost. You might sit down to meditate for 10 minutes and realize at the 9-minute mark that you have been completely lost in a fantasy or a worry the entire time. Do not despair. That 1 minute of awareness, that single moment of waking up, is the practice. It is a moment of victory. Simply return to the breath. You may also find yourself judging your thoughts. That was a selfish thought. I shouldn't think things like that. This too is just another thought. You can simply label it judging. The kindness and gentleness of your attention is more important than anything else. The liberation that comes from this practice cannot be overstated. When you begin to realize in your bones that you are not your thoughts, you are no longer a prisoner of your own mind. A thought about your inadequacy is no longer a verdict on your self-worth. It is just a judging cloud passing through the sky. A thought of catastrophic worry is no longer a prophecy of the future. It is just a worrying log floating down the river. A thought is merely a suggestion, an electrical impulse in your brain. You do not have to believe it. You do not have to serve it. You do not have to act on it. You have a choice. A profound quietness begins to emerge in your life, not because the thoughts have vanished, but because their volume has been turned down. You are no longer leaning in, listening to their every word. You are resting in the vast, silent awareness that holds the thoughts, an awareness that was there all along, waiting patiently to be discovered beneath the noise. As we become more skilled at sitting on this riverbank, watching the stream of consciousness flow by, we inevitably begin to notice deep patterns. We see the mind's relentless tendency to grasp at certain thoughts and push others away. We see, with undeniable clarity, that every single thought, no matter how pleasant or painful, arises, lingers for a moment, and disappears. This direct, experiential insight into the transient, fleeting nature of our own minds serves as the perfect gateway to understanding one of the most foundational principles of Buddhist wisdom, the universal truth of impermanence. As we sit on the bank of the mind's river, patiently watching the endless stream of thoughts, feelings, and sensations float by, a profound truth begins to dawn on us, not as an intellectual concept, but as a direct, lived experience. We see, with undeniable clarity, that nothing stays. A pleasant thought arises, and we want to hold it, but it dissolves. An anxious feeling appears, and we want to push it away, but it too eventually fades, replaced by something else. The contents of our minds are like smoke, constantly shifting, forming, and dissipating. This direct insight is our personal doorway into one of the most fundamental laws of the universe, a truth the Buddha called anicca, or impermanence. This is not a dark or pessimistic doctrine. It is simply a statement of fact, the fundamental rhythm of existence. The only thing that does not change is the fact that everything changes. We can see this truth everywhere we look, for nature is its greatest teacher. Look at a towering, ancient tree. It appears solid, permanent, an icon of stability. Yet, it was once a tiny, vulnerable seed, and it is, at this very moment, in a slow, imperceptible process of change. It is growing, shedding its leaves, and will one day decay, its substance returning to the soil to nourish new life. Look at the mountains on the horizon. They seem to be the very definition of immutability, yet they are being constantly, relentlessly worn down by the patient forces of wind and rain. Look at a cloud in the sky. It is born from invisible vapor, takes on a magnificent shape for a few moments, and then dissolves back into the formless air. The turning of the seasons, the cycle of day and night, the waxing and waning of the moon, all of these are constant, silent sermons on the truth of anicca. This law is not confined to the natural world. It governs everything we create. The new car in the driveway begins to age the moment it is built. Our favorite coffee mug will one day chip and break. The very buildings that form our cities are in a constant state of construction and decay. Everything is a temporary arrangement of energy. This universal law is not just happening out there, it is happening within us, at every moment. Our own bodies are primary examples of impermanence. We tend to think of our body as a solid, continuous thing, but it is a flowing process, a river of change. Millions of our cells are dying and being replaced in the time it takes to draw a single breath. The body you inhabit today is not the same physical entity it was a few years ago. We can feel this process directly. The energy of youth gives way to the aches of middle age. Our hair changes color. Our skin changes texture. It is all in flux. The same is true for our feelings and emotions. As we saw when we imagine them as waves, no feeling lasts forever. A moment of intense joy is precious precisely because it is fleeting. A wave of deep sadness can feel all-consuming, as though it will never end. Yet it always does. It subsides, and the emotional weather changes. To expect to feel happy all the time is as unrealistic as expecting it to be a sunny day, every day, forever. Our thoughts, as we have just seen, are the most ephemeral phenomena of all, like lightning flashes in the sky of the mind. Understanding this intellectually is one thing. The real question is, why is this truth so central to our well-being? Because the primary cause of our deep-seated suffering, our dukkha, does not come from the fact that things change. It comes from our relentless, deeply ingrained resistance to this fact. It arises from our clinging, our tanha, to people, experiences, and things as if they were solid, permanent, and capable of providing lasting security. We try to build a permanent home on the shifting sands of reality, and then we are filled with anguish when the inevitable winds of change blow it down. We cling to youth, and so we suffer at the sight of a wrinkle. We cling to a perfect moment of happiness, trying to freeze it in time, and so we are disappointed when it passes. We cling to our relationships as if they were static contracts, and so we are hurt and confused when people grow and change in ways we didn't expect. We cling to life itself as a permanent possession, and so we live in fear of its natural conclusion. As the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." We, however, spend our lives trying not only to step in the same river twice, but to bottle the water and keep it on our shelf forever. There is a famous story that illustrates this with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gautami had a single infant son, whom she adored above all else. One day, the child fell ill and died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness, she refused to accept his death. She clutched the small, lifeless body to her chest and went from house to house, desperately seeking medicine that could revive him. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man, seeing her unbearable pain, advised her to go and see the Buddha. She went, laid her son at the Buddha's feet, and told her story. The Buddha listened with immense compassion and told her, "There is only one thing that can help your son. I need you to go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever experienced death." Filled with a desperate hope, Kisa Gautami rushed to the village. At the first house, she asked for the mustard seed. Of course, the woman there said, "We have plenty." As she was about to take it, Kisa Gautami remembered the Buddha's condition. "Has anyone in this house ever died?" she asked. The woman's face fell. "Oh, my dear," she said, "the living are few, but the dead are many. We lost my husband just last year." So Kisa Gautami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family was happy to share a mustard seed, but every family had been touched by loss. One had lost a parent, another a sibling, another a child. As the day wore on, and she walked from door to door, a profound transformation occurred. She was no longer drowning in the lonely ocean of her own personal grief. She began to see that loss was not a unique punishment inflicted upon her. It was the shared, universal, inescapable fabric of life. Her fierce, desperate clinging to her son's individual life began to soften, dissolving into a wise, compassionate understanding of the universal law of anicca. She returned to the Buddha not with a mustard seed, but with an awakened heart. This is the liberation that is hidden within the truth of impermanence. Seeing things as they are does not lead to pessimism or despair. It leads to a profound realism that allows us to stop fighting unwinnable wars against reality. When we truly understand and accept that every experience is fleeting, each moment becomes infinitely more precious. We savor our food more deeply because this particular taste will never be experienced in the same way again. We listen to a loved one with more attention because we know this moment is unique and unrepeatable. We watch a sunset with a sense of awe, knowing that its beauty lies in its transient nature. The acceptance of impermanence is the ultimate antidote to taking life for granted. It also cultivates a deep resilience. When we know that painful emotions, difficult situations, and periods of hardship are also impermanent, we can endure them with more grace and less panic, trusting that this too shall pass. We become more flexible, more adaptable, less afraid of the natural unfolding of life. By observing impermanence in our world, in our bodies, and in the stream of our own minds, we have arrived at a crucial juncture in our investigation. If everything is in a constant state of flux, if there is nothing solid to hold on to, a deep and unsettling question naturally arises. If my body is changing, my feelings are changing, and my thoughts are changing from moment to moment, then where is the I that is experiencing all of this? Where is the permanent, unchanging self that I have always believed myself to be? This powerful inquiry cuts to the very core of our identity and leads us directly into the territory of the Buddha's most profound and challenging teaching, the truth of no self, or anatta. Having witnessed the universal truth of impermanence, seeing how everything from the mountains to our own thoughts is in a constant state of flux, we arrive at the most penetrating and transformative question in all of Buddhist inquiry. If my body is constantly changing, my feelings are transient waves, and my thoughts are fleeting clouds, then who, precisely, is the one experiencing all of this? Where is the permanent, solid, unchanging I at the center of it all? This investigation takes us into the heart of the Buddha's teaching on anatta, or no self. This is, without question, the most misunderstood of all Buddhist concepts, often mistaken for a nihilistic denial of our own existence. But it is not about annihilation, it is about liberation. It is about freeing ourselves from the prison of a false identity and discovering the fluid, dynamic, and miraculous nature of who we truly are. First, it is essential to distinguish between two levels of reality. On the conventional, day-to-day level, of course you exist. You have a name, a body, a personality, and responsibilities. This conventional self is necessary for us to function in the world, to form relationships, and to navigate our lives. The teaching of anatta does not ask you to stop paying your taxes or to pretend you don't recognize your friends. It is investigating something deeper. It is asking whether, at an ultimate, experiential level, there is a separate, independent, permanent CEO inside your head who is the owner of your experiences and the commander of your actions. We feel like there is a singular me inside, pulling the levers and watching the world on a screen. The practice of anatta is to turn around and look for this operator, to see if anyone is actually there. To aid in this investigation, the Buddha provided a brilliant analytical framework. He taught that what we mistake for a solid self is actually a dynamic, interdependent process, a bundle of 5 changing components, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. By looking for the self in each of these components and failing to find it, we can begin to deconstruct our false identity. The first aggregate is form, rupa. This is your physical body, your bones, muscles, organs, and the sensory information they receive. As we have already seen through the lens of impermanence, the body is not a static entity. It is a flowing river of processes: breathing, digesting, aging. It is not a solid thing you possess, but a temporary, changing phenomenon. The second aggregate is feeling, vedana. This refers to the raw feeling tones that arise with every experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. As we explored, these are fleeting, momentary reactions, like the weather changing from one moment to the next. You are not any single feeling. The third aggregate is perception, sanya. This is the faculty that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. It sees a particular combination of color and shape and calls it a tree. It hears a sound and labels it music. This process is also in constant flux, shaped by our memory, culture, and language. The fourth aggregate is mental formations, sankhara. This is a vast and powerful category that includes all of our volitional activities, our thoughts, intentions, opinions, beliefs, prejudices, habits, and desires. This is the realm of the monkey mind in its entirety. As we have seen, these formations are impersonal, conditioned, and endlessly changing. They are not a stable self. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness, vijnana. This is the fundamental capacity for awareness itself, the raw consciousness of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Crucially, the Buddha taught that consciousness is not a monolithic soul that exists independently. It arises in dependence upon an object and a sense organ. Seeing consciousness arises only when there is an eye and a visible form. It is not a permanent watcher, but a flickering, moment-to-moment event. Now, we can use this framework for a direct, contemplative inquiry. Look at your body. Is this body truly me? Is it my essential self? If it were, you should have complete control over it. You should be able to command it. Do not get sick. Do not age. Do not feel pain. But you cannot. It follows its own natural laws. So, the body is not a permanent self. Now, consider a feeling. A wave of joy. Is that me? If so, where did you go when the joy faded and was replaced by boredom? The feeling is clearly not a permanent self. Now, take a thought. I wonder what time it is. Is that fleeting, conditioned thought the real you? It appeared from nowhere and will vanish in an instant. The thought is not a permanent self. By systematically examining each of the 5 aggregates, we search for this elusive, independent self, and in each place, we fail to find it. The ancient parable of King Milinda's chariot perfectly illustrates this. A wise Buddhist monk named Nagasena was questioned by the Greek King Milinda. The king, a sharp logician, asked for the monk's name. Nagasena replied that Nagasena was just a convenient designation, a name for the collection of parts, but that in an ultimate sense, no permanent person could be found. The king challenged him, using the analogy of his own royal chariot. "Venerable sir," the king asked, "is the pole of the chariot the chariot?" "No, your majesty," said Nagasena. "Are the wheels the chariot? Is the axle the chariot? Are the reins the chariot?" To each question, the king answered no. Then, Nagasena concluded, "Is it the combination of all these parts that is the chariot?" The king was forced to concede that chariot was simply a name, a concept we apply to a particular functional arrangement of parts. There is no separate chariotness that exists apart from its components. Nagasena then masterfully turned the analogy back on himself. He explained that, just like the chariot, Nagasena is simply the conventional name we give to the temporary arrangement of the 5 aggregates. There is no solid, separate self to be found. We are an assembly. We are a process. What, then, is the profound liberation in this understanding? It is freedom from the heaviest burden we carry, the burden of maintaining, defending, and perpetually worrying about this fictional self. Think of the immense energy we expend every day polishing our ego, trying to make it look good, defending it when it feels criticized, comparing it to other egos, and fearing its ultimate demise. When we see through this illusion, this entire exhausting project can finally be set down. So much of our anxiety is rooted in self-reference. What will happen to me? What do they think of me? When the me is seen not as a fragile, solid entity but as a fluid, ever-changing process, the target of anxiety becomes diffuse and loses its power. Furthermore, the harsh inner critic begins to run out of a job. Who exactly is it criticizing? A fleeting thought? A changing sensation? The criticism can't stick to a process the way it sticks to a self we believe to be solid and real. This insight also transforms our relationship with others. When we see our own anger or fear as the result of impersonal, conditioned processes, we can see the same in others. Their hurtful words or actions are no longer seen as an attack from a solid, malicious them, but as the unfortunate output of their own conditioning. This fosters a deep and authentic compassion. Therefore, anatta, no self, is not a denial of your existence. It is a radical and joyful reframing of it. You are not a noun, you are a verb. You are not a static thing, you are a dynamic happening. You are not a solitary island, but a wave in the great ocean of existence. This deep, experiential understanding that we are an ever-changing process shatters the illusion of being a separate, independent entity. It reveals that our existence is not isolated, but is profoundly and intricately woven into the existence of everything else. This insight is the natural doorway to the next great law of reality, the truth of the interconnected web. the law of dependent origination. Having journeyed through the profound truths of impermanence and no self, we might be left with a sense of groundlessness. If everything is constantly changing, and there is no solid, separate I at the center of it all, then what are we? What does reality look like without the familiar anchor of the self? The picture that emerges from these insights is not one of nihilistic emptiness or random chaos. Instead, it is a vision of reality as a vast, dynamic, and intricately woven tapestry of interconnection. This is the Buddha's teaching on paticca samuppada, a Pali term that means dependent origination, or more poetically, interconnectedness. It is the positive expression of what anatta reveals. If we are not separate, then we must be connected. This is the how of reality, the dynamic process that governs the universe. The core principle of dependent origination can be stated with beautiful simplicity. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. This arises because that arises. This ceases because that ceases. In other words, nothing exists independently. Everything in existence arises in dependence upon other factors and conditions. Nothing is a standalone entity. Think of a simple candle flame. It appears to be a distinct, singular thing, but it has no independent existence. The flame is entirely dependent on the presence of the wick, the wax of the candle, and the oxygen in the air. If you remove any one of these conditions, the flame ceases to be. It is a dependent co-arising, a momentary event created by the coming together of specific conditions. The entire universe functions according to this law. To grasp this more deeply, let us look at a flower. When we look at a flower, say a rose, we see its color, its petals, its fragrance. We see it as a single object. But if we look with the eyes of dependent origination, we see the entire cosmos within it. Look closely, and you will see the sunshine in the rose, for without the sun's light and warmth, the rose could not have photosynthesized its food and grown. Therefore, the sun is a part of the rose. Look again, and you will see the clouds. Without the rain that fell from the clouds, the rose would have withered from thirst. So, the clouds are in the rose. Look deeper still, and you will see the soil, the rich minerals, the earthworms that aerated the ground. The earth itself is in the rose. You can see the farmer who planted the seed, the hands that tended the plant, the water that was carried to it. The farmer is in the rose, and you can keep going. The farmer's parents are in the rose, for without them, there would be no farmer. The wheat that made the bread, that gave the farmer energy, is in the rose. The iron ore mined from the earth to create the farmer's tools is in the rose. When we truly look, we see that the flower is made entirely of non-flower elements. It has no separate, independent self. Its existence is a miracle of interbeing, a temporary, beautiful manifestation of the entire universe coming together. An even more magnificent metaphor for this reality comes from the ancient Buddhist scriptures. The jewel net of the god Indra. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single node where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, perfectly clear, multifaceted jewel. The miraculous nature of this net is that if you look closely into the polished surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire, infinite net. And the reflection of each jewel within that first jewel also contains the reflection of all the other jewels, and so on, in an endless, holographic cascade of interpenetration. Each jewel contains all the other jewels. This is a breathtaking vision of reality. You are one of these jewels. Your existence is not just a product of the whole. It actively reflects the whole. Everything you are is a reflection of everything else, and everything else is a reflection of you. This might sound like beautiful but abstract philosophy, but it is one of the most practical and transformative tools for working with our own minds. Let us take a moment of anger. Our habitual way of thinking is, I am angry. We see the anger as a personal possession, a solid thing that belongs to a solid me. But applying the lens of dependent origination, we can deconstruct this. The feeling of anger that arose in you did not come from nowhere. It arose dependent on a multitude of conditions, It depended on the words that someone else spoke. It depended on your physical state. Were you tired or hungry? It depended on your past experiences with this person and the story you have built around them. It depended on your cultural conditioning about what constitutes an insult. The anger has no independent existence. It is not yours. It is a dependent co-arising, a flame that sparked into being when certain conditions came together. When we see this clearly, the anger loses its solidity and its personal sting. The same applies to all of our mental states. The anxiety we feel about the future is not a personal failure. It is a conditioned phenomenon, dependent on news reports, societal pressures, and past disappointments. The pride we feel in an accomplishment is also conditioned, dependent on the help of others, our education, and sheer luck. When we truly see this intricate web of causes and conditions, the whole game of blame and judgment begins to collapse. How can we assign ultimate, absolute blame to another person when their actions are the result of a million causes and conditions, their upbringing, their own pain, their own ignorance that we cannot possibly see? And how can we assign ultimate, absolute blame to ourselves when our own reactions are equally conditioned? This does not mean we abdicate responsibility for our actions. In fact, it does the opposite, but it replaces the harsh, punitive energy of blame with the soft, spacious, and healing energy of understanding. The liberation of this perspective is immense. The painful illusion of being a separate, isolated self, struggling alone against a hostile world, begins to dissolve. We see that we are not separate from life. We are an expression of it. This fosters a profound sense of belonging, a kinship with the flower, the cloud, the person next to us, and even the person who challenges us. That feeling of existential loneliness, which is a hallmark of the modern condition, is healed by the visceral understanding that we are deeply and inextricably connected to all that is. Compassion arises not as a moral duty, but as a natural, logical consequence of this insight. When we see that the suffering of others is conditioned just like our own, how can we not feel empathy? We see their non-them elements, the web of causes that led them to their present state, and our hearts naturally soften. And finally, this view cultivates a deeper sense of responsibility. If we are all jewels in Indra's net, then every thought, word, and action sends a ripple, a reflection, throughout the entire system. An act of kindness is not just a private transaction. It is a contribution of light to the whole net. An act of anger contributes to the darkness. We become more mindful of our impact, knowing that our personal well-being is inseparable from the well-being of all. This journey from impermanence to no self has culminated in this beautiful and liberating vision of interconnectedness. We see that we are not solid, separate beings, but flowing, interdependent processes woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. This radical shift in perspective, from the isolated me to the interconnected we, provides the perfect, fertile ground for the next stage of our inner work. Having deconstructed the illusion of the separate self that so often judges and fears, we can now begin the joyful and healing work of cultivating the qualities of an interconnected heart. The first, most fundamental, and most powerful of these qualities, the direct antidote to the inner critic and the fear born of separation, is the boundless, unconditional warmth of loving kindness, or metta. Having journeyed deep into the wisdom teachings of impermanence, no self, and interconnectedness, we have arrived at a new and expansive understanding of reality. We have used our intellect and our powers of observation to deconstruct the illusion of a separate, solid self. But wisdom is only one wing of the bird of awakening. The other wing is compassion. An intellectual understanding alone can be dry and sterile. Now, we must water the seeds of this wisdom with the qualities of the heart. Having seen that we are not separate, we must now learn to feel our connection. The most fundamental practice for cultivating this feeling, the most powerful medicine for the harsh inner critic and the fear born of loneliness, is the practice of metta, a Pali word that translates as loving kindness. It is vital to understand what metta is and what it is not. It is not the sentimental, possessive, or romantic love that we so often see glorified in our culture. It is not about liking everyone or approving of all their actions. It is not a bubbly, superficial emotion. Metta is something far more stable, profound, and unconditional. It is a steady, quiet, and boundless goodwill. It is the simple, heartfelt wish for oneself and for all beings to be happy and free from suffering. Think of the warmth of the sun. The sun shines on everyone and everything without discrimination, on the beautiful flower and the thorny weed, on the saint and the sinner. It does not ask if a being is worthy of its warmth. It simply shines. Metta is like this. It is a radiation outward from the heart, a fundamental orientation of kindness that expects nothing in return. It is the simple, powerful aspiration, may you be well. The practice of cultivating metta, known as metta bhavana, begins with the most radical and often the most difficult step, directing this loving kindness toward ourselves. For many of us, particularly in a culture that often mistakes self-criticism for a virtue, this can feel deeply uncomfortable. The moment we try to offer ourselves a kind wish, the inner critic leaps up in protest. This is selfish, it says. It's narcissistic. I don't deserve it. I have too many flaws to be worthy of my own kindness. It is essential to meet these objections with gentle wisdom. The Buddha taught that offering kindness to oneself is not an act of selfishness, but a necessary prerequisite for all genuine compassion. The most common metaphor for this is a simple one. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If your own inner well is dry, if your own being is starved of kindness and racked with self-judgment, any love you try to offer to others will be strained, incomplete, and ultimately unsustainable. It becomes a performance of kindness rather than a genuine overflowing of it. Filling your own cup first is not selfish. It is the most generous thing you can do for the world. The Buddha stated this in the most unambiguous terms. He said, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere." This is a profound permission slip, reframing self-kindness, not as an indulgence, but as a core spiritual responsibility. So how do we begin this practice? Find a comfortable posture, one that embodies a sense of gentle dignity. You can close your eyes and, for a moment, place a hand over the center of your chest, simply feeling the warmth of your own touch and the quiet rhythm of your heart. To begin, we need to evoke the feeling of metta, however faint it might be. Perhaps you can bring to mind the face of a person who has shown you great and unconditional kindness. Or perhaps you can think of a beloved pet and the simple, uncomplicated love you feel for it. Allow yourself to feel that warmth, that gentle affection in your own body. Now, holding that feeling, you begin to silently repeat a set of phrases directed toward yourself. These are not magic words. They are tools to guide your intention and focus your heart. The classic phrases are, "May I be safe," "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I live with ease." As you repeat them, do so slowly, coordinating them with your breath. On the inhalation, you might say, "May I be safe." And on the exhalation, you feel that wish permeating your being. You are not trying to force a feeling of happiness. You are simply planting the seeds of the wish. You are bathing yourself in a gentle, benevolent intention. Your mind will wander. It will bring up lists of your flaws, memories of your mistakes, and judgments about the practice itself. This is normal. Just as in mindfulness of breath, when you notice the mind has wandered, you gently acknowledge it judging, thinking, and with infinite patience, you return to the phrases. You are replacing, one phrase at a time, the harsh inner monologue of the critic with a new, healing narrative of unconditional goodwill. You do this for several minutes, allowing your own being to be the first recipient of this profound gift. Once you have established some foundation of kindness for yourself, you can begin to expand the circle. This is done in stages. First, bring to mind a benefactor, a respected teacher, mentor, or anyone who has been genuinely good to you. It is usually easy to feel gratitude and goodwill towards such a person. Holding their image in your mind, you offer them the phrases, "May you be safe," May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the warmth of your heart extending to them. Next, bring to mind a cherished friend or a close family member, someone you love dearly. Offer them the same wishes, feeling your heart connect with theirs across any distance. The next stage is a crucial one. Bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see regularly but have no strong feelings about one way or another. The person who delivers your mail, a cashier at the supermarket, someone you pass on your daily commute. By directing metta toward this person, you begin to break down the walls of indifference that separate us from most of humanity. You see them not as a functionary, but as a human being who, just like you, wishes to be happy and safe. This practice closes the gap of separation. Only when your metta feels strong and stable should you proceed to the next stage, the difficult person. Bring to mind someone with whom you have a conflict or who has caused you pain. It is vital to understand the intention here. The goal is not to condone their harmful actions, to force yourself to like them, or to become a doormat. The goal is a profound act of self-healing. You recognize that this person's harmful actions are driven by their own suffering, their own anger, greed, and ignorance. From a place of strength in your own heart, you wish for them to be free from that suffering. May you be free from the anger that causes you to harm others. May you too find peace. This act frees you from the prison of resentment and hatred. Finally, you allow the circle to become boundless. You radiate metta in all directions, front, back, left, right, up, and down. You offer it to all beings without exception, to friends, to enemies, to strangers, to animals, to all beings in all realms of existence. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. You become a quiet, radiant center of unconditional goodwill, a sun shining its warmth on the entire interconnected web of life. This practice, over time, is transformative. It is the direct and systematic replacement of the voice of the inner critic with the voice of a tireless and loving friend. It dissolves feelings of isolation and connects us to the heart of humanity. It is the medicine that heals the wounds of separation. Metta is the profound wish for all beings to find happiness. But what happens when we, or they, are not happy? What is the heart's response when it encounters active pain and suffering? This calls for a sister quality to loving kindness, a quality that is more active, more trembling, more engaged with the reality of pain. This quality is the wish for all beings to be free from their suffering. It is known as compassion or karuna, and it is the next step on our path of opening the heart. If loving kindness, or metta, is the sun's gentle warmth, the wish for all beings to be happy, then what is the heart's response when it encounters a world that is not always happy? What happens when we are confronted with the first noble truth, the unavoidable reality of pain, loss, and disappointment, both in ourselves and in others? If our only tool is the wish for happiness, we may feel helpless or even turn away, unable to bear the presence of suffering. The open heart requires another essential quality, a sister to metta, that allows it to stay present and engaged when faced with pain. This quality is karuna, known to us as compassion. Karuna is often defined as the trembling or quivering of the heart in the face of suffering. This is not a poetic platitude. It is a description of a profound psycho-spiritual event. It suggests a heart so open and sensitive that it resonates with the pain it witnesses, like a finely tuned string vibrating in sympathy with another. This trembling is not fear or sentimentality. It is the resonance of shared existence, and it gives rise to a powerful aspiration, the deep wish for a being to be free from its suffering. If metta is the gentle hand that wishes you well on your journey, karuna is the strong arm that reaches out to help you when you have stumbled and fallen. It is active, engaged, and courageous. It is crucial to distinguish compassion from its near enemy, pity. Pity establishes distance. It looks down from a position of superiority and says, "Oh, you poor thing, I am so glad I am not in your position." Pity reinforces the illusion of separation. Compassion, on the other hand, is built on the foundation of interconnectedness. and a recognition of our shared humanity. It says, I recognize this pain. I know this experience of suffering. We are in this together. It is a feeling with, not a feeling for. It is also important to distinguish true compassion from what is sometimes called empathic overwhelm or idiot compassion. It is not simply absorbing another's pain to the point where you become paralyzed and drowned in it yourself. True karuna is imbued with wisdom. It combines the tenderness of an open heart with the strength and clarity to remain present and balanced, so that one can be of genuine service rather than becoming another casualty. To understand the nature of compassion, first consider how we naturally express it to others. Imagine a dear friend comes to you in a state of deep distress. Perhaps they have lost a job, ended a relationship, or received a difficult diagnosis. What is your instinctive, kind-hearted response? You do not lecture them. You do not tell them to just get over it. You do not immediately try to solve their problem. Instead, you listen. You create a safe and accepting space for their pain. You might offer a physical gesture of comfort, a hand on their arm, a supportive embrace. You offer words that validate their experience. I'm so sorry you're going through this. That sounds incredibly difficult. I'm here for you. It's okay to feel this way. This natural, humane response, the combination of presence, validation, and carise, the very essence of karuna in action. Now, consider the radical and transformative step of turning that same quality of attention toward yourself. When you are the one who has failed, when you are the one who is grieving, when you are the one overwhelmed with anxiety, what is the tone of your inner voice? For most of us, we meet our own pain with a shocking lack of kindness. The inner critic leaps to the attack. Why are you so weak? You're pathetic for feeling this way. Other people handle this stuff better. Just pull yourself together. We take the first arrow of life's unavoidable pain, and we immediately shoot ourselves with the second, third, and fourth arrows of shame, judgment, and self-recrimination. The practice of self-compassion is the practice of learning to treat ourselves like we would treat a beloved friend. The practice itself is simple, yet profound. It consists of 3 steps that can be called upon in any moment of difficulty. The first is to simply acknowledge the reality of the moment with mindfulness. This is a moment of suffering. This hurts. This simple, honest admission breaks the cycle of denial and resistance. The second step is to connect with our common humanity. We remind ourselves, suffering is a part of life. Everyone feels this way sometimes. Failure, loss, and disappointment are part of the shared human experience. I am not alone in this. This simple reminder dismantles the isolating feeling that our pain is a unique, personal failing, a sign that we are somehow defective. The third step is to actively offer ourselves kindness. You can place a hand over your heart, feeling the warmth and gentle pressure. This physical gesture is not trivial. It activates the caregiving system in our nervous system, releasing hormones that generate feelings of safety and trust. Then, you can offer yourself phrases of compassion, just as you would to a friend. May I be kind to myself. May I give myself the compassion that I need right now. May I accept myself just as I am, in this moment of difficulty. In Mahayana Buddhism, the embodiment of perfect compassion is the great Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, whose name means the one who hears the cries of the world. Legend tells that as Avalokiteshvara looked out upon the world, seeing the immense and unending suffering of countless beings, their heart was so moved, so overcome with compassion, that their head exploded into 1,000 pieces. Another Buddha, seeing this, reassembled the pieces into a form with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, so that Avalokiteshvara could see all the suffering in the universe and reach out to all who are in need. This powerful myth teaches us that true compassion does not mean having an armor of invincibility. It means having the courage to let your heart be broken open by the reality of pain. And it is from that very broken openness that an immense capacity to heal and to help is born. Contrary to the common misconception that compassion is a weak or passive state, it is, in fact, a profound source of strength. It takes immense courage to turn toward pain, whether it is our own or another's. Avoidance, distraction, and numbness are the easy paths. Compassionate presence is the path of the spiritual warrior. This presence builds a deep inner resilience. It allows us to be with life's difficulties without being shattered by them. It gives us the inner resources to endure hardship with grace and to learn from our challenges rather than simply being victimized by them. Furthermore, true compassion is not passive. It is the greatest motivator for wise action. It sees a problem and asks not, "Isn't this sad?" but rather, "What can be done to help alleviate this suffering?" Compassion, then, is the heart's brave, tender, and unwavering response to the reality of pain. It is the trembling of a heart that dares to stay open in a difficult world. The practice begins with the radical act of holding our own suffering with the same warmth and unconditional kindness we would offer to someone we love. In doing so, we finally stop firing the second arrow, and the process of true healing can begin. Having learned to be with ourselves and others in times of suffering, our hearts are now more spacious and resilient. We are prepared to learn how to be present for joy, not just our own, but the happiness of others, transforming the poison of envy into the medicine of shared delight. This leads us to the next radiant quality of the heart, sympathetic joy, or mudita. Having learned to meet our own pain and the pain of others with the trembling, open heart of compassion, or karuna, we now turn to another essential quality of the awakened heart. We have explored the wish for all beings to be happy, which is loving kindness. We have explored the wish for all beings to be free from suffering, which is compassion. But what is our response when we witness the happiness and success of others? In a world that is often driven by competition and comparison, our instinctive reaction can be a complex mixture of emotions. A part of us may feel happy for them, but another, quieter part might experience a painful pang of envy, a feeling of being left behind. This is where we cultivate the third of the four divine abodes, a quality known as mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the genuine, unselfish joy that arises when we witness the good fortune of others. It is the ability to celebrate their successes as if they were our own. In our modern culture, which is built on a deep-seated belief in scarcity, this quality is nothing short of revolutionary. We are conditioned from a young age to believe that life is a zero-sum game. We are taught that there is a limited amount of success, recognition, wealth, and happiness to go around. If someone else gets a bigger slice of the pie, that must mean there is less available for us. This scarcity mindset is the fertile soil in which the toxic weeds of envy, jealousy, and resentment grow. When we hear that a colleague received a promotion, or a friend got engaged, or a neighbor bought a beautiful new home, we may offer our congratulations, but underneath, we might feel a subtle contraction, a quiet voice that whispers, "Why not me?" This feeling is painful, isolating, and deeply corrosive to our own peace of mind. This innate human tendency towards comparison has been weaponized and amplified on an industrial scale by our digital world. Our social media feeds are meticulously curated highlight reels, showcasing the peak moments of everyone else's lives. We scroll through an endless parade of perfect vacations, blissful relationships, career triumphs, and creative breakthroughs. Our brains, which evolved for life in small tribes, are not equipped to handle this constant influx of comparison data. We are relentlessly comparing our own messy, unedited, behind-the-scenes reality with the polished, public-facing performance of thousands of others. This is a perfect recipe for chronic dissatisfaction, a persistent feeling of inadequacy and lack. We end up feeling that our own life is somehow deficient simply because it doesn't look like the filtered and algorithmically selected images on our screens. Mudita is the direct, powerful antidote to this modern poison. It is the conscious choice to opt out of the comparison game and instead to participate in the joy of others. The profound insight behind mudita is the understanding that happiness is not a limited resource. It is not a finite commodity like gold or oil. Someone else's happiness does not deplete the world's supply. Another person's success does not take anything away from you. In fact, the opposite is true. Joy is generative. The more of it there is in the world, the better the world is for everyone. The ability to feel joy for others actually adds to your own store of happiness. It is an expansive emotion, one that breaks down the walls of the ego and connects you to the abundant goodness in the world. A beautiful parable illustrates this principle perfectly. Imagine you are in a vast, dark hall, holding a single lit candle. The flame represents your own happiness and well-being. Now, imagine that hundreds of other people enter the hall, each holding an unlit candle. You have a choice. You can jealously guard your single flame, keeping it all to yourself in your own small pool of light. Or you can walk among the others and use your flame to light their candles. As you touch your flame to their wicks, one by one, their candles flare to life. Does your own flame diminish in this process? Not in the slightest. Your candle burns just as brightly as before. But now, instead of a single, lonely flame, the entire hall is flooded with brilliant, warm, and joyful light. This is mudita. By celebrating and contributing to the light of others, you do not lose anything of your own. You simply help to illuminate the world, and in doing so, you find yourself in a much brighter and warmer place. Like the other heart practices, mudita can be cultivated intentionally. The practice begins, as always, by starting with someone easy. You would not begin by trying to feel joy for a bitter rival. You begin by bringing to mind someone whose happiness is easy and natural for you to celebrate. It could be a beloved child taking their first steps, their face alight with triumphant joy. It could be a dear friend who has just achieved a lifelong dream after years of hard work. Bring this person and their happy situation clearly to your mind. Instead of allowing your attention to drift to your own life and your own accomplishments or lack thereof, make a conscious effort to focus entirely on their experience of joy. Imagine how they must feel. Imagine the sense of relief, excitement, and happiness in their body and mind. See if you can feel a faint echo of that joy in your own heart. To help focus your intention, you can use phrases, just as we did with loving kindness. As you hold the image of their happiness, you can silently repeat, "I am so happy that you are happy." Or, "May your joy and good fortune continue. May your happiness increase." Or simply, "I rejoice in your joy." Breathe with these phrases, feel them, water these seeds of unselfish joy with your sincere attention. As the feeling grows stronger, you can gradually expand the circle. You might think of a neutral person, perhaps an artist whose work you admire, or an athlete who has just won a championship, and offer them your sympathetic joy. With time and practice, you can even learn to find a spark of joy for the good fortune of people you find difficult, perhaps by recognizing that in their moment of happiness, they are less likely to be causing harm to themselves or others. The transformative power of this practice is immense. It is the most direct medicine for the painful and isolating states of envy and jealousy. When you can genuinely rejoice in the good fortune of others, you are freed from the corrosive torment of comparison. Your heart becomes lighter, more open, and more connected. Your relationships deepen, as others can sense the authenticity of your goodwill. But perhaps the greatest benefit is this: if you can only be happy when good things happen to you, your chances for happiness are statistically quite limited. But if you can be happy when good things happen to anyone, your opportunities for joy become virtually infinite. Every piece of good news you hear, every success story you read, every smile you see on a stranger's face becomes a source of upliftment for your own heart. You are no longer waiting for your turn to be happy. You are actively participating in the happiness of the world. We have now explored a powerful triad of heartfelt responses to the myriad experiences of life. We have metta, loving kindness, the wish for all beings to be happy. We have karuna, compassion, the heart's response to suffering. And we have mudita, sympathetic joy, the heart's response to happiness. But what holds these three powerful, active, and sometimes intense emotions in a state of balance? What prevents our loving kindness from becoming attachment and grief? What prevents our compassion from becoming despair? And what prevents our sympathetic joy from becoming manic excitement? The container for these three precious jewels, the calm center of the turning wheel, is the fourth and final of the divine abodes, the profound, unshakable peace of equanimity, or upekkha. We have journeyed through the radiant, active qualities of the heart, learning to cultivate the boundless goodwill of loving kindness, the tender response of compassion, and the celebratory delight of sympathetic joy. These three qualities, metta, karuna, and mudita, the heart's beautiful, energetic, and engaged response to the world. They reach out, connect, and participate in the full spectrum of life. Yet, for these powerful emotions to be truly liberating, they require a container. What keeps our love from turning into clinging attachment and grief? What keeps our compassion from collapsing into overwhelming despair? What keeps our joy from becoming manic excitement and heedlessness? The force that holds all of these in perfect balance, the calm center of the turning wheel, is the fourth and culminating divine abode, a quality known as upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is perhaps the most subtle and easily misunderstood of these four heart qualities. Its true nature is often confused with its near enemy, indifference or apathy. Indifference is a cold, withdrawn, and uncaring state. It is a form of aversion, a shutting down of the heart that says, "I don't care about this. It doesn't affect me." This is not upekkha. True equanimity is not a state of cold distance, but one of profound, warm, and spacious presence. It is the capacity to care deeply, to love fully, and to remain engaged with life, but without being attached to the outcome. It is the quiet wisdom that understands that while we can offer our love and our help, we cannot control the universe. Indifference says, "It doesn't matter." Equanimity says, "I will be with this, no matter what happens." It is a peace that passes all understanding, a deep and unshakable balance of mind that is born not of apathy, but of profound wisdom. This profound peace of upekkha is not a forced state of neutrality. It arises naturally from the deep, experiential understanding of the truths we have already explored. When you have seen for yourself the truth of impermanence, anicca, you realize that all states are temporary. Pleasure and pain, success and failure, praise and blame, they all arise and pass away like clouds in the sky. Knowing this in your bones, you naturally stop clinging so desperately to the pleasant and resisting the unpleasant. You learn to ride the waves of life with more grace and skill. When you have investigated the truth of no self, anatta, you see that there is no solid, separate ego to be defended or aggrandized. When praise comes, there is no one to become inflated. When blame comes, there is no solid self to be wounded. The target for life's arrows becomes diffuse, and they lose their power to knock you off balance. The most direct foundation for upekkha, however, is a deep understanding of dependent origination and the law of karma. This is the recognition that all beings, including ourselves, are the owners of their actions and the heirs of their results. Every being is living out the consequences of countless causes and conditions, past and present. While we can influence and help, we cannot ultimately walk another person's path for them or shield them from the consequences of their choices. This is not a fatalistic or passive view. It is a recognition of the profound complexity of life and a deep sense of humility in the face of it. It frees us from the exhausting and arrogant burden of trying to be the controller of everyone else's destiny. A powerful image for this quality is that of a great, ancient mountain. Picture it standing, majestic and solid, rooted deep in the earth. The winds howl around it, blowing from all four directions. From the south come the warm, sweet winds of pleasure, praise, and worldly gain. From the north blow the biting, icy winds of pain, blame, and loss. From the east and west come the chaotic, unpredictable gusts of fame and disrepute. These are the 8 worldly winds that constantly blow through every human life, threatening to push us off balance. But the mountain remains unmoved. It does not lean into the sweet southern winds, craving for more. It does not recoil from the harsh northern gales, resisting their sting. It remains utterly stable, present, and centered, allowing all the winds to blow as they will. its fundamental stillness undisturbed. Our practice is to cultivate this same mountain-like stability in our own hearts, to find that place of unshakable peace within us that is not dependent on the ever-changing weather of our lives. We can cultivate this quality through direct contemplation. We can sit quietly and bring to mind different people in our lives. First, ourselves, then a friend, a neutral person, and even a difficult person. For each one, we can reflect. You are the owner of your own actions, the heir to your own karma. Your happiness and unhappiness arise from your own thoughts, words, and deeds, and the countless conditions of your life. I wish you well, and I will help where I can, but your path is ultimately your own to walk. May you find your own peace. This is not a cold dismissal. It is a profound act of respect for the autonomy of another being, and it frees our love from the anxiety of control. In our daily lives, we practice by noticing the 8 worldly winds. When praise comes, we can feel the pleasure, say thank you, and then let it go, without allowing it to become a source of pride. When blame or criticism comes, we can feel the initial sting, listen with an open mind for any truth it may contain, and then let it go, without firing the second arrow of anger or defensiveness. We are practicing being the mountain. In this way, we see that equanimity is not the absence of love, but its perfection. It is the quality that makes the other 3 divine abodes boundless and sustainable. Upekkha protects loving kindness from decaying into clinging attachment. We can love someone with all our heart, but because of equanimity, we do not shatter if they leave or change. Upekkha protects compassion from burning out into despair. We can be with immense suffering, our own or others, and offer our help, but equanimity provides the spaciousness and strength that prevents us from being consumed by it. Upekkha protects sympathetic joy from becoming carried away with excitement or becoming attached to another's success, which would then lead to disappointment if their fortune changes. Equanimity is the deep, still water that allows the beautiful waves of metta, karuna, and mudita to arise and express themselves without churning the whole ocean into a chaotic storm. It is the spacious, clear sky that allows all weather to pass through without being stained by it. Together, these 4 divine abodes form a complete curriculum for the heart. They are a symphony of enlightened emotion, providing a balanced, wise, and profoundly compassionate way to engage with the fullness of life. With this complete toolkit of the heart now established, with the warmth of loving kindness, the tenderness of compassion, the delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable balance of equanimity, we are now perfectly equipped to turn our attention to some of the most powerful and challenging energies we face. We can now approach the fiery, often destructive force of anger, not as an enemy to be suppressed or a master to be obeyed, but as a phenomenon to be met with mindfulness, transformed by compassion, and held in the vast, peaceful embrace of equanimity. Having cultivated the 4 divine abodes of the heart, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, we have prepared a fertile ground of inner stability and warmth. We are no longer approaching our inner world as a battlefield, but as a garden to be tended with wisdom and care. With this compassionate toolkit, we are now ready to approach one of the most powerful, challenging, and potentially destructive energies we experience: the fire of anger. In our society, we are given 2 primary and equally unskillful options for dealing with anger. The first is suppression, to deny its existence, to push it down, to pretend we are not angry out of a fear of conflict or a desire to be seen as nice. This is like capping a volcano. The pressure builds internally, often leading to depression, anxiety, or an eventual, uncontrolled explosion. The second option is indiscriminate venting, to give the anger free rein, to lash out with harsh words, to slam doors, to perpetuate a cycle of aggression and blame. This is like letting a wildfire burn down the entire forest, causing immense harm to ourselves and others. The Buddhist path offers a radical middle way, a third option. It teaches us to neither suppress nor vent, but to transform the fire of anger. The first step in this transformation is to change our fundamental view of anger. We must stop seeing it as an enemy to be vanquished. Instead, we can learn to see it as a powerful, often misunderstood messenger. Anger is a form of energy, and like all energy, it is not inherently good or bad. It is our relationship to it, and our actions driven by it, that determine whether it is skillful or unskillful. When the fiery messenger of anger arrives, its presence, though unpleasant, contains vital information. It may be telling you that a boundary has been violated. It may be signaling that a deep value has been trampled upon. It may be a protective shield, a fierce guard dog barking to protect a more vulnerable, tender feeling underneath, such as hurt, fear, or helplessness. Our task is not to shoot the messenger. Our task is to learn to receive its message with wisdom and courage, without getting burned by the flames. To do this, we must first learn to recognize the fire alarm. The practice of mindfulness allows us to become intimate with the somatic or bodily signals of anger as they first arise. You learn to notice the first flush of heat in your face, the subtle clenching of your jaw, the tightening in your shoulders, the accelerated beat of your heart, the churning in your stomach. By catching the anger at this early, energetic stage, before it has fully hijacked the thinking mind and written a detailed story of blame, you have a precious window of opportunity to respond differently. The moment you recognize these signs, the single most powerful action you can take is to pause. Do not speak. Do not type that email. Do not make that phone call. For just a moment, do nothing. This sacred pause is the wedge you drive into the chain of conditioned reactivity. It is in this gap between stimulus and response that your freedom lies. In that pause, you immediately return to your anchor, the breath. Take a few conscious, deliberate breaths. This is not to push the anger away, but to ground yourself in the present moment, to give the nervous system a signal of safety so that you are not completely swept away by the hormonal and energetic storm. Now comes the heart of the practice, an act of immense courage and self-compassion. Instead of resisting the physical sensations of anger, you turn your awareness gently toward them. You embrace the energy. You feel the heat in your face, the tension in your hands, the raw, pulsing energy in your chest, and you hold it all in a spacious, non-judgmental awareness. You are no longer saying, "I am angry." You are observing. There is the energy of anger present in this body. The great meditation master, Thich Nhat Hanh, offers a beautiful and profound metaphor for this practice. He teaches us to treat our anger like a crying baby. When a baby cries, a good mother or father does not ignore it or punish it. That would be cruel and would only make the baby cry louder. A good parent gently picks up the baby, holds it tenderly, and cradles it. They soothe it with their calm presence, saying, There, little one, I know you are suffering. I am here for you. I will take care of you." We must learn to do this with our own anger. When the baby of anger begins to cry within us, we can mentally pick it up. We can embrace it with the mindfulness we have been cultivating. We can say to it, "Hello, my anger. I see that you are here. I will not run away from you. I will take care of you." This act of cradling our anger with the tenderness of self-compassion, karuna, is what begins to soothe its raw, painful energy. It is a profound act of self-love and healing. When the initial intensity of the storm has subsided, thanks to our mindful presence and compassionate embrace, we can begin to listen for the message the anger was trying to deliver. We can ask ourselves gentle questions. What is this anger trying to protect? What is the more vulnerable feeling hiding beneath this fire? Is it hurt? Is it fear? Has a personal boundary been crossed? Is there a deep need of mine that is not being met? This inquiry helps us move from blind reactivity to wise understanding. We might discover that our anger at a partner's forgetfulness is really a shield for the pain of feeling unimportant. We might find that our anger at a colleague is protecting our fear of inadequacy. This wisdom is the gift hidden within the heart of the fire. With this wisdom, we can then move to skillful action, which is the practice of right speech. The goal is not to become a passive doormat. The wisdom gained from our anger often requires us to speak up and re-establish our boundaries. But we can do so with clarity and kindness, rather than with the destructive force of blame. Instead of shouting, "You are always so selfish and inconsiderate," which only invites defensiveness, we can use the language of our own experience. We can say, "When this happened, I felt hurt and unheard. What I need is to feel that my contributions are respected." This communicates the essential message without attacking the other person, creating the possibility for genuine dialogue and resolution rather than escalating the conflict. Through this process, a remarkable alchemy occurs. The raw, leaden energy of destructive anger is transformed into the golden energy of wisdom, clarity, and courage. The fire that once threatened to burn down the forest is now contained and harnessed, becoming the focused flame that illuminates our path, warms our heart, and gives us the strength to act for the well-being of ourselves and others. Having learned to work with this powerful fire from the past and present, we can now turn our attention to an equally challenging energy, one that torments us by creating imaginary fires in the future. The pervasive and often paralyzing states of fear and anxiety. Having learned to work skillfully with the fiery energy of anger, an emotion so often rooted in the past and the present, we now turn our attention to its shadowy cousin, an energy that draws its power almost exclusively from the future. This is the cold, ghostly, and pervasive state of anxiety. If anger is a reaction to what has happened, anxiety is a state of suffering in advance, a fear of what has not yet happened. It is the disease of what if. What if I fail the exam? What if I get sick? What if they don't like me? What if I lose my job? While fear can be a healthy, intelligent response to a clear and present danger, tiger in the room anxiety is a fear of a tiger that exists only in our imagination. Our mind becomes a malfunctioning time machine, stuck on a setting that constantly projects catastrophic futures, and we are forced to live in these dreadful movies of our own creation. This ability to think about the future is a magnificent human faculty. It allows us to plan, to create, to learn from imagined mistakes. But when the monkey mind hijacks this ability, it becomes a source of immense suffering. We are literally scaring ourselves with stories we are making up. The profound and simple antidote to this future-oriented suffering, then, is to learn how to skillfully and intentionally get out of the time machine and return to the only place where these imagined catastrophes are not actually happening, the solid ground of the present moment. The most direct way to pull a mind lost in anxious thought back to the present is to anchor it firmly in the physical reality of the senses. There is a simple yet powerful grounding practice that can be used anytime you feel the wave of anxiety begin to rise. It is not a trick, but a formal application of mindfulness. Wherever you are, you can pause and gently, silently, name to yourself 5 things you can see. Look around you and let your eyes rest on 5 distinct objects. I see the green leaf of the plant by the window. I see the blue cover of the book on the table. I see the wood grain of the floor. I see the light reflecting off the water glass. I see my own hand. Notice their color, their shape, their texture. This simple act pulls your awareness out of the abstract world of future-oriented thought and into the immediate visual field. Next, bring your awareness to the sense of touch and notice 4 things you can feel. I feel the firm pressure of the chair supporting me. I feel the smooth surface of my desk beneath my fingertips. I feel the soft fabric of my sweater against my skin. I feel a cool breeze from the open window. This grounds you directly in the tangible sensations of your body. Then, open your awareness to your sense of hearing and notice 3 things you can hear. I hear the distant hum of traffic. I hear the sound of a bird singing. I hear the quiet whir of my computer. Finally, notice 2 things you can smell and 1 thing you can taste. This entire exercise yanks the mind out of the ghostly, imaginary future and plants it firmly in the undeniable reality of the here and now. Once you have returned to the present moment through your senses, you can ask yourself a simple, clarifying question. This question, when asked with sincerity, has the power to cut through layers of anxious delusion. The question is this: in this exact moment, right now, am I okay? Not, will I be okay next week if the worst happens? Not, what about the challenges I have to face tomorrow? Just now, in this breath, as you sit here, reading these words, feeling the air enter and leave your body? Is there an immediate, life-threatening danger? Is the imaginary tiger actually in the room? In 99.9% of the moments that we are consumed by anxiety, the honest, simple answer to this question is yes. Right now, in this breath, I am okay. This practice reveals a profound truth. Most of our suffering is not caused by our present reality, but by our thoughts about a future, imagined reality. It exposes anxiety in that moment as a phantom. Imagine a tightrope walker poised to cross a deep and wide canyon. Their goal is the platform on the other side. If they fixate on the terrifying, dizzying drop below the catastrophic, what if they will lose their balance and fall? If they stare too intently at the distant destination, becoming overwhelmed by how far they have to go, their focus will waver. A master tightrope walker does neither. Their entire universe of attention shrinks to the next single, manageable action. They feel the texture of the rope under their foot. They notice the subtle shifts in the wind. They focus all of their being on placing their next step, and then the next, and then the next. Our life is this tightrope. Anxiety is the state of constantly looking down at the chasm or being overwhelmed by the distance to the destination. Presence is the art of walking the rope one step, one breath at a time. You do not have to handle your entire future right now. You only have to handle this present moment, and you are already doing that. Underlying much of our anxiety is a fundamental lack of trust in ourselves. Anxiety is fueled by the implicit belief that my future self will not be able to handle what is coming. We try to solve all of tomorrow's imagined problems with today's resources, and we find ourselves coming up short. The practice here is to consciously cultivate trust in your own resilience. Take a moment to look back at the landscape of your own life. Think of all the difficulties you have already faced, the challenges you were certain you would not survive, the periods of grief and fear you have already endured. And yet, here you are. You survived them all. You handled them. The same intelligence, the same courage, the same inner resources that brought you through every single one of those past difficulties are still within you. You can trust that your future self will be able to access those same resources when the time comes. You don't need all the answers today. You only need the willingness to meet the future when it arrives, one moment at a time. Anxiety, then, is a ghost that haunts the uninhabited house of the future. The bright light of present moment awareness is what causes it to dissolve. By learning to use our senses to ground ourselves, to honestly assess our immediate reality, and to walk our path one single step at a time, we learn to befriend our fear rather than being ruled by it. We have now spent considerable time exploring our own inner world, learning to work with our thoughts, and to meet our most difficult emotions, anger and anxiety, with mindfulness and compassion. We have been cultivating a stable and peaceful inner home. Now, we can begin to see how this inner transformation naturally and beautifully affects our interactions with the outer world, most pointedly in the way we communicate with those around us. This leads us to the essential social practices of deep listening and loving speech, the art of bringing our presence into our relationships. Having cultivated a garden of peace within our own minds and hearts, tending to our thoughts, and meeting our most difficult emotions with mindfulness and compassion, we now arrive at a crucial point in our journey. The peace we find in silence and solitude is not meant to be a fragile treasure kept locked away from the world. Its true purpose, its ultimate fruition, is to be carried out into our lives, to inform our actions, and to transform our relationships. The primary arena where our inner state becomes our outer reality is in the way we communicate. The Buddha placed such importance on this that he included it as a key component of the Eightfold Path: Samma, Vacha, or right speech. Right speech is not a rigid list of rules, but a compassionate and wise guide to using our words as instruments of healing, connection, and truth, rather than as weapons of harm, division, and confusion. It is traditionally broken down into four main qualities. The first is to speak truthfully. This means abstaining from lies, but it also means avoiding exaggeration, distortion, and deceit in all its forms. Truthful speech is the bedrock upon which all trust is built. The second quality is to avoid divisive or slanderous speech. This is the practice of refraining from gossip, from carrying tales, and from speaking in a way that sets one person against another. It is the commitment to foster harmony rather than discord. The third quality is to abstain from harsh or abusive language. This means letting go of words intended to wound, insults, yelling, sarcasm, belittling. It is the recognition that words have immense power, and it is a commitment to creating emotional safety for ourselves and for others. The fourth quality is to avoid idle chatter. This is perhaps the most subtle. It is not a commandment to be silent, but an invitation to be mindful of our words, to speak with intention and purpose, rather than simply filling the air with noise out of nervousness or habit. These four qualities guide what comes out of our mouths. But the most profound aspect of right speech, the one most often forgotten in our culture of self-expression, is its other half, the practice of deep listening. We are taught how to speak, but rarely are we taught how to truly listen. Most of the time, when we think we are listening, we are actually engaged in a frantic internal monologue. We are busy formulating our rebuttal, waiting for a pause so we can jump in with our own story, or judging what the other person is saying through the filter of our own opinions and beliefs. This is not listening. This is reloading. Deep listening is a form of meditation. It is the practice of offering another human being the rare and precious gift of your full, undivided, and non-judgmental presence. Your sole intention is not to fix, advise, or correct them. Your sole intention is to provide a safe, empty space in which they can express themselves, so that they might hear themselves more clearly and suffer less. You listen with the ears of compassion, recognizing that whatever they are saying, no matter how angry or confused it may sound, is an expression of their own suffering and their own desire to be happy. A powerful story from the Buddha's life illustrates the transformative power of this practice. A man, furious for some reason, came to the Buddha and began to hurl a torrent of insults at him. The Buddha did not argue. He did not defend himself. He did not become angry in return. He simply sat in silence, offering the man his calm, unwavering presence, listening deeply not just to the words, but to the pain behind them. When the man had finally exhausted himself and run out of insults, a silence fell. The Buddha then spoke, his voice gentle and clear. "My friend," he asked, "if you buy a gift for someone, and that person does not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, surprised by the question, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, it would belong to me, the one who offered it." The Buddha smiled softly. "Exactly," he said. "Today, you have offered me the gift of your insults and your anger. I do not accept this gift." The man was stunned into silence, his anger completely disarmed by a presence so vast and peaceful that his negativity had nowhere to land. This is the power of deep listening and equanimity. It creates a space where we can choose not to internalize the arrows fired at us. When we have offered this gift of deep listening, and it is our turn to speak, we practice what is known as loving speech. This is not about being sweet or sentimental. Loving speech can be very clear and firm, especially when we need to set a boundary. But its intention is always to promote understanding and connection, not to win an argument or assign blame. The most effective tool for this is to shift from accusatory you statements to vulnerable I statements. A you statements, such as, "You are so inconsiderate," "You never listen," immediately puts the other person on the defensive and escalates the conflict. An I statement, on the other hand, expresses your own inner truth without attacking the other. It follows a simple anatomy. When this observable, non-judgmental fact happens, I feel this emotion because I have this universal human need. So, the blaming statement could be transformed into, "When I am speaking and I see you looking at your phone, I feel hurt and dismissed because I have a deep need to feel heard and respected." This is an honest, vulnerable, and non-aggressive expression of your reality. It invites empathy rather than counterattack. It is a doorway to dialogue, not a declaration of war. When we commit to these practices, a beautiful ripple effect begins to occur. By offering someone the gift of deep listening, we are helping to quiet their inner critic. We are providing a space of safety that allows their monkey mind to calm down. In the presence of our calm, they can understand themselves better. When we use loving speech, we de-escalate conflict and create an atmosphere of trust, making it safe for others to be honest and vulnerable with us. We begin to change the entire emotional ecosystem of our relationships. We are no longer just silencing our own inner voice. We are helping to create a world with less inner and outer noise for everyone we touch. Our inner peace begins to manifest as outer harmony. Right speech, expressed through the twin practices of deep listening and loving words, is the application of our mindfulness practice in the social sphere. It is a core component of skillful and compassionate action in the world. This naturally leads us to broaden our perspective even further. If we can bring this level of intention and presence to our conversations, can we not also bring it to all of our other daily activities? How can we transform the mundane acts of working, eating, walking, and even washing the dishes into opportunities for meditation and peace? This inquiry leads us to the practice of finding the sacred in the ordinary, of living a life of mindfulness in every action. Having established a rich inner life through the cultivation of mindfulness and the four qualities of the heart, and having learned to bring that presence into our communication with others, we now arrive at the complete integration of our practice. A common misconception about meditation is that it is a specialized activity, something we do for 20 minutes on a cushion in the morning, after which we get up and dive back into the chaos of our real life. But the ultimate goal of this path is not simply to have peaceful moments, it is to live a peaceful life. This requires us to dissolve the artificial boundary between our formal practice and the rest of our day. The world itself must become our meditation cushion. Every action, no matter how mundane, becomes an opportunity to be present, awake, and alive. Most of us spend the majority of our lives on autopilot. We drive to work and arrive with no memory of the journey. We eat a meal while scrolling through our phone, never once tasting the food. We take a shower while meticulously planning our day, our minds 100 steps ahead of our bodies. We are physically present, but mentally, we are ghosts, haunting the corridors of the past or the imagined landscapes of the future. This is a half-lived existence. We are absent for most of our own lives. The practice of mindfulness in action is the profound and gentle art of showing up for your own life. It is the practice of uniting your mind and your body in the same place at the same time, so that you can be fully present for the richness of each moment. A beautiful bridge from sitting meditation to this integrated life is the formal practice of walking meditation. It can be done anywhere, in a quiet hallway, a city park, or your own backyard. Unlike walking for exercise or to get to a destination, the sole purpose of walking meditation is the walking itself. You slow your pace down dramatically. Your attention is not on where you are going, but on the intricate, miraculous process of each step. You can break it down into its component parts, feeling the lifting of the foot from the ground, noticing the leg moving through space, feeling the heel make contact with the earth, then the ball of the foot, then the toes. You feel the shift in weight as the other foot begins to lift. You are not thinking about walking. You are completely absorbed in the direct, physical sensations of walking. In this practice, you are not in a hurry to arrive anywhere. You have already arrived. The destination is each step. This teaches us, in a very direct way, how to find fulfillment in the process, rather than being fixated on the result. With this spirit, we can transform the most mundane daily chores into profound moments of peace. Consider the act of washing the dishes, something most of us rush through as an obstacle to get to the real part of the evening. In the Zen tradition, this is a core practice. When you wash the dishes, you just wash the dishes. You feel the warmth of the water on your hands. You notice the smooth, slick surface of the ceramic plate. You see the iridescent beauty of a soap bubble as it catches the light. You hear the simple sound of the water running. You are not trying to get the chore done. You are fully present for the experience of washing. Your mind and body are united in a simple, purposeful action. In that moment, there is no anxiety, no regret, no planning. There is only the water, the dish, and your gentle attention. The dish is not an enemy to be conquered. It is the reality of this moment, and you are meeting it completely. The same can be applied to drinking your morning coffee. Instead of gulping it down while checking emails, you can make it a 5-minute meditation. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. See the rich color of the liquid and the steam rising from it. Inhale its aroma before you take a sip. When you do drink, feel the liquid in your mouth. Notice its taste and temperature, and follow the sensation as you swallow. A habitual, unconscious act is transformed into a rich, multi-sensory experience of pure presence. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures this principle. A student asks a great Zen master, "What is the secret to your enlightenment?" The master replies, "It is very simple. When I am hungry, I eat. When I am tired, I sleep." The student, confused, says, "But master, doesn't everyone do that?" The master smiles and says, Most people, when they eat, their minds are not there. They are caught up in 1,000 worries and schemes. They are not truly eating. When they sleep, their minds are troubled by endless dreams and anxieties. They are not truly sleeping. But when I eat, I just eat. My mind is not elsewhere. When I sleep, I just sleep. In this, there is a great difference. The secret, then, is not to do great, mystical things. The secret is to do whatever you are doing with the totality of your being. Enlightenment is not found in a future destination. It is found in the quality of attention you bring to this very step, this very breath, this very dish. When you begin to practice in this way, you start to heal the fundamental split that causes so much of our stress, the split between a body that is here and a mind that is somewhere else. When your mind and body are unified in a single action, there is a profound sense of wholeness, peace, and integrity. Life is no longer a series of boring tasks to be endured between more exciting moments. Every moment becomes an opportunity. A traffic jam is no longer a source of rage. It becomes a chance to sit, breathe, and notice the sky. Folding laundry is no longer a mindless chore. It is a meditation on texture, shape, and careful movement. You are no longer waiting for life to begin. You are living it in all its simple, ordinary, and sacred detail. As we bring this quality of deep, non-judgmental awareness to all of our daily activities, a natural question begins to arise. We are not just observing how we do things. We begin to question what we are doing. Are the actions that fill our days the very work we do to sustain our lives, in alignment with our deepest values of peace, kindness, and compassion? Does our livelihood cause harm to ourselves or to other beings? This profound inquiry, born from the practice of mindfulness in action, leads us directly to the next crucial element of the path, the principle of right livelihood and its powerful modern expression in the search for a life of conscious simplicity. As we learn to bring mindful attention into every action, the way we walk, the way we eat, the way we listen, we inevitably begin to look more closely at the actions that consume the largest portion of our waking lives, our work, and the way we sustain ourselves in the world. This brings us to a cornerstone of the Buddhist path, the principle of samma ajiva, or right livelihood. This is not a rigid career guide, but a deep and personal inquiry into how we trade our most precious, non-renewable resource of time for the means to live. It asks us to consider whether our work, the very engine of our daily life, is aligned with our quest for inner peace, or if it is actively working against it. At its core, the principle of right livelihood is rooted in the fundamental ethic of non-harming. Traditionally, this meant avoiding professions that directly cause suffering, such as dealing in weapons, poisons, intoxicants, or the exploitation of other living beings. In our complex modern world, this principle invites a more nuanced and personal reflection. We can ask ourselves, does my work require me to be dishonest or to compromise my integrity? Does it contribute to the destruction of our environment? Does it prey on the addictions and insecurities of others? And, just as importantly, does it cause harm to me? Does it demand a pace that leads to chronic stress, burnout, and a complete neglect of my own well-being? To engage in a livelihood that systematically destroys your own peace of mind is a form of self-harm. This inquiry runs directly counter to the prevailing ethos of our time, the relentless hustle culture, and the insatiable materialism it serves. We are immersed in a cultural narrative that insists that more is always better. We are told that our worth is measured by our productivity, our job title, and the accumulation of possessions. We are encouraged to sacrifice our health, our relationships, and our sanity on the altar of career advancement. We then take the earnings from our stressful work and spend them on things we are told will make us happier. Bigger house, a faster car, the latest technology. This creates a vicious cycle. We work in jobs that cause us stress, and then we try to soothe that stress by consuming things that require us to work even more. We are caught on a treadmill of striving and acquiring, perpetually chasing a horizon of satisfaction that never gets any closer. This is the very definition of unskillful livelihood. The antidote to this modern sickness is a radical and liberating wisdom, the wisdom of enough. This is the spirit behind the modern movement of minimalism. It is crucial to understand that true minimalism is not about deprivation. It is not an aesthetic of stark white rooms or a rigid rule about owning fewer than 100 things. True minimalism is the intentional practice of identifying what is truly essential and valuable in your life, and then courageously clearing away the rest. It is the discovery that happiness does not come from adding more, but from subtracting the non-essential. Our possessions come with hidden costs. They cost us the time and life energy we trade to acquire them. They cost us the physical space they occupy in our homes, and they cost us the precious mental bandwidth required to clean them, maintain them, organize them, and worry about them. In a very real way, our possessions begin to possess us. Minimalism is the path to freedom from this self-imposed burden. This path begins with a simple, contemplative inquiry. You can ask yourself, with genuine curiosity, what do I truly need to live a good, happy, and meaningful life? If you sit with this question quietly, you may find the answer is surprisingly simple. The true necessities are few: clean air and water, nutritious food, safe shelter, meaningful connection with others, a sense of purpose, and peace of mind. Almost everything else is a conditioned want, a desire implanted in us by a culture that profits from our dissatisfaction. By learning to distinguish between our genuine needs and our endless wants, we can begin to consciously step off the treadmill. We can choose to value our time over our things, our experiences over our acquisitions, and our inner peace over our status. A powerful story from ancient Greece perfectly illustrates this liberating wisdom. The philosopher Diogenes the Cynic chose to live a life of extreme simplicity. He owned nothing but a cloak, a staff, and a cup, and he famously lived in a large ceramic jar in the marketplace of Athens. His radical freedom and wisdom were so renowned that the most powerful man in the known world, Alexander the Great, came to meet him. Alexander, standing before the philosopher with his impressive entourage, was awed. He told Diogenes, "Ask of me any favor you wish, and I shall grant it." Diogenes, who had been enjoying the morning sun, simply looked up at the great emperor and replied, "Stand out of my light." In that moment, the roles were reversed. The man who had nothing wanted nothing. The man who had everything had nothing of true value to offer. Diogenes had discovered the invincible power and freedom that comes from having enough. His needs were so simple that even the master of the world could only stand in his way. This is the reorientation of values that right livelihood and minimalism invite us into. It is a shift from finding richness in having to finding richness in being. When we are no longer slaving away to accumulate more stuff, we free up our most precious resources, our time, our energy, and our attention to invest in things that create lasting well-being. We can invest that time in nurturing our relationships, in learning a new skill, in volunteering in our community, in spending time in nature, or in deepening our spiritual practice. We discover that true wealth is not measured by the numbers in our bank account, but by the quality of our presence, the depth of our connections, and the tranquility of our heart. Right livelihood is not about everyone quitting their corporate job to become an organic farmer. It is about bringing conscious, compassionate intention to whatever work we do. It may mean finding ways to make your current job less harmful and more meaningful. It may mean reducing your hours so you have more time for your life. Or it may, for some, mean making a courageous change to a profession that is more aligned with your soul. By simplifying our outer lives or work, our possessions, our consumption habit sway, clear away the external clutter that so often fuels our inner turmoil. We create the spaciousness required for our inner garden to truly flourish. We have now explored the core practices for the mind, the heart, and our actions in the world. We have assembled the essential components for a life of greater peace and wisdom. This leads to a final, practical question. How do we weave all of this into a consistent, durable, and lifelong practice? How do we build a habit that is strong enough to support us through life's inevitable challenges, yet gentle enough that it doesn't become another source of striving and self-judgment? This brings us to the crucial art of building a gentle and sustainable discipline. We have now journeyed through the vast and profound landscape of Buddhist wisdom, exploring practices for calming the mind, opening the heart, and bringing intention to our actions. We have gathered a rich collection of tools and insights, yet the most beautiful map is useless if it is not used, and the most powerful tools are worthless if they are left in the toolbox. The crucial bridge between the theory of this path and the living reality of a more peaceful life is the creation of a consistent, personal practice. This final stage of our exploration is perhaps the most practical and important of all. It is about the gentle art of showing up for yourself, day after day, and building a sustainable habit that will serve as your anchor for a lifetime. The single greatest enemy to building a new habit is the tyranny of perfectionism. We begin with grand, heroic ambitions. I will meditate for an hour every single day. We are filled with enthusiasm for a few days, but then life intervenes. We have a busy morning. We feel tired. We forget. The first time we fail to meet our impossibly high standard, the inner critic launches a vicious attack. You see, you have no discipline. You've already failed. You might as well just give up. And so we do. This all or nothing mindset is the graveyard of good intentions. The Buddhist path, however, is a middle way, and this applies as much to our effort as it does to our philosophy. The goal is not a fleeting moment of perfection. It is a lifetime of patient, gentle persistence. With this in mind, the first principle of building a sustainable practice is to start absurdly small. Let go of the idea that a longer meditation is always a better one. The initial goal is not to achieve deep states of bliss or have a life-altering insight. The initial and only goal is to establish the habit of showing up. To do this, commit to something so easy that it is almost impossible to say no to. Commit to just 5 minutes a day, or even 2 minutes. 2 minutes of conscious breathing is infinitely more powerful than the 0 minutes you will get from an abandoned 1 hour a day ambition. A tiny, achievable commitment builds momentum. It sends a message to your nervous system. This is something we do now. This is a part of who we are. Once the simple habit of sitting down is as ingrained as brushing your teeth, the duration can slowly and naturally increase if you feel drawn to it. This leads to the second principle. Consistency is more important than duration. Practicing for 5 minutes every day of the week is far more transformative than practicing for an hour once a week. Imagine trying to get a heavy flywheel spinning. A single, massive push once a week will be difficult, and the wheel will quickly grind to a halt. But a series of small, regular, daily pushes will build upon each other, creating a smooth, powerful, and self-sustaining momentum. It is the same with our minds. Each time you sit, you are strengthening the neural pathways of mindfulness, compassion, and concentration. You are carving new grooves in the mind. The consistency of the practice is what makes these new pathways the mind's default setting over time. To support this consistency, it is incredibly helpful to follow the third principle. Create a specific time and space for your practice. Relying on willpower alone is exhausting. Instead, create cues in your environment that automatically trigger the habit. You can use a technique called habit stacking, where you link your new meditation habit to an existing one. For example, you can make a rule for yourself. Immediately after I have my first cup of coffee in the morning, I will sit and meditate for 5 minutes. The existing habit of drinking coffee becomes the trigger for the new habit of meditating. This removes the daily decision of when to practice. Likewise, creating a dedicated space can be immensely powerful. It doesn't need to be elaborate. A particular chair in a quiet corner, a cushion on the floor, perhaps with a candle or a small plant next to it. When you enter this space and take your seat, your body and mind receive a clear signal. This is the place where we get quiet. This is the time for practice. It becomes your sanctuary. Now we come to the golden rule, the principle that holds all the others together. You must be kind to yourself. You will miss days. This is not a possibility, it is a certainty. Life will get messy. You will get sick. You will travel. You will be overwhelmed. You will simply forget. In these moments, your inner critic will see an opportunity to attack. This is where your practice truly lies. The most important skill in building a lifelong habit is not perfect adherence. It is the gentle, compassionate ability to start again. If you miss a day, or a week, or even a year, the practice is not to berate yourself. The practice is to simply sit down today. That is all. You can acknowledge the inner critic's voice, perhaps even smiling at its familiar, worried tone. And then you gently, firmly, return to your cushion. Every single day offers a fresh start. Every breath is a new beginning. Imagine you have a large, empty bucket that you wish to fill with the water of peace. Each day, you take a small cup and add just one measure of water to the bucket. At first, your progress seems laughable. The bottom is barely wet. It feels like you are making no difference at all. It is tempting to give up, but you persist. Day after day, week after week, you add your one small cup. Eventually, you notice the water level is rising. It is no longer just a damp spot at the bottom. Over months and years of this steady, patient effort, the bucket becomes full, and then it begins to overflow, nourishing the ground all around it. Each 5-minute meditation session is that one small cup of water. It may not feel like much on any given day, but it is the cumulative effect of this consistent, gentle effort that creates profound and lasting transformation. Finally, remember that you are not alone on this path. The fifth principle is to seek the support of a community, or Sangha. The Buddha famously said that companionship with the wise is the whole of the spiritual life. Practicing with others provides encouragement, accountability, and the invaluable wisdom of shared experience. When you are feeling discouraged, the Sangha can lift you up. When you are feeling confused, the Sangha can offer clarity. In the modern world, this can take many forms. It could be joining a local meditation center, finding a reputable online community, or even just forming an agreement with one trusted Dharma buddy to check in with each other and share your progress. These principles, starting small, being consistent, creating a routine, practicing self-kindness, and finding community, provide a compassionate and realistic roadmap for integrating these practices into your life. This is not about adding another stressful item to your to-do list. It is about creating a sustainable, nourishing foundation of support for your own liberation. Having now laid this foundation for a consistent and durable practice, we are ready to step back and look at the beautiful tapestry we have been weaving. What does it look like when all of these threads, mindful awareness, the open heart, skillful action, and a simplified life are brought together into a single, cohesive whole? What does it truly mean to live an awakened life in the midst of our complex and challenging world? This leads us to our final exploration. We have traveled a great distance on this inner journey together. We began by acknowledging the restless, chattering state of the untrained mind, the monkey mind that steals our peace. We looked unflinchingly at the Buddha's diagnosis of this condition in the Four Noble Truths. Understanding the nature of dissatisfaction and its cause in our own clinging and aversion. From there, we began the healing process. We discovered the profound stability of the breath as our anchor to the present moment. We learned to listen to the wisdom of the body, to ride the waves of our emotions, and to watch the clouds of our thoughts without being swept away. We explored the deep, liberating truths of impermanence, no self, and the intricate, beautiful web of interconnectedness. We then learned to cultivate the four great qualities of the heart: the warmth of loving kindness, the tenderness of compassion, the unselfish delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable balance of equanimity. Finally, we saw how to bring these practices into our daily lives, into our communication, our work, and our every action. We have gathered all the threads. Now, in this final stage of our exploration, we will weave them together to see the fabric they create, the fabric of an integrated, awakened life. It is absolutely essential to begin by dispelling a common myth. An awakened life is not a perfect life. It is not a magical state free from all problems, pain, or difficulty. To believe this is to set oneself up for disappointment. The bills will still arrive, the body will still age and get sick, relationships will still have their challenges, you will still get caught in traffic jams. The purpose of this entire path is not to create a problem-free existence. The purpose is to fundamentally transform your relationship to the problems that inevitably arise. It is about developing the inner shock absorbers, the wisdom and the spaciousness of heart to meet life's 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows with grace, courage, and a sense of profound peace that is not dependent on external conditions. So, what does this integrated practice look like in the midst of an ordinary, modern day? It begins upon waking. Instead of the old habit of immediately grabbing the phone, an act which invites the world's anxiety into your mind before you have even fully arrived in your day. The practitioner pauses. They take a moment to simply feel the sensation of breathing in a body that has been rested. They connect with a sense of gratitude for the simple gift of another day. Perhaps they silently offer a wish of loving kindness for themselves and for all beings. They have started their day from a place of presence and intention. Later, driving to work, another driver cuts them off aggressively. The old, conditioned reaction would have been an instant surge of anger, a tightening in the chest, and perhaps a muttered curse. The new response is different. There is still the initial jolt of adrenaline that's a natural, biological first arrow. But now, there is awareness. The practitioner notices the heat rising in their face. They feel the clenching in their stomach. They breathe with these sensations, holding them in a compassionate awareness rather than acting on them. They recognize, this is the energy of anger. They might even find the space to reflect, that person must be in a great hurry. They must be suffering in their own way to be driving so recklessly. The anger is not suppressed. It is seen, held, and transformed by understanding. At work, a stressful project looms with a tight deadline. The old habit would be to get lost in a storm of anxiety, the mind projecting endless catastrophic scenarios. The new habit is to notice the anxious thoughts arising, to label them gently worrying, and to repeatedly, gently, bring the mind back to the task at hand, using the breath as an anchor during moments of overwhelm. An email arrives with harsh, unfair criticism. The practitioner feels the sting of pain, the first arrow, but they pause. They notice the mind's desire to immediately fire back a defensive, angry reply. They see the story forming. I'm a failure. They don't respect me. And because they have learned that they are not their thoughts, they can choose not to believe this story. They can let the wave of hurt wash through them without being drowned by it, and can choose to respond later from a place of clarity and equanimity. This practice infuses the entire day. A simple lunch becomes a meditation on taste and nourishment. A conversation with a colleague becomes an opportunity for deep listening. The journey home becomes a time for quiet reflection rather than mental rehearsal of the day's frustrations. This integrated life is beautifully depicted in the ancient Zen story of the 10 bulls, or ox herding pictures. These 10 images illustrate the entire path of practice, The story begins with a farmer searching for his lost ox, which represents his lost, true mind. He finds its footprints, the teachings, gets a first glimpse of the ox, and then begins the difficult struggle of catching and taming it. Through patient, gentle effort, the ox becomes tame, and the farmer can ride it home peacefully, no longer in conflict with his own mind. In later stages, the practice becomes so effortless that both the ox and the farmer disappear into a state of profound unity. But the story does not end there, in a state of solitary bliss. The crucial 10th and final picture shows the farmer returning to the village and the marketplace. He is an ordinary person, with bliss-bestowing hands, interacting with the world, sharing his simple presence and wisdom. This is the goal. The fruit of our practice is not to escape the world, but to return to it, transformed, and to be of benefit to others in the most ordinary of ways. What, then, becomes of the inner voice, the chattering monkey mind we set out to quiet? For most of us, the voice may never become completely silent. The brain is a thought-producing organ, after all, but the profound change is that we are no longer its slave. Its power has been broken. The voice has been demoted from a tyrannical king to a sometimes helpful, sometimes annoying court jester. Its roar has become a whisper, because we have discovered a deeper, vaster space of quiet awareness within ourselves. We are no longer fused with the voice. We can listen to its suggestions with a discerning ear, taking what is useful and letting go of the rest. Its commands are no longer binding. We are free. Ultimately, this path teaches us that peace is not a destination we arrive at one day, where all our problems are solved forever. Peace is the path itself. It is the quality of attention we bring to this very breath. It is the kindness we bring to this very moment of difficulty. It is the conscious choice, again and again, to meet our lives with an open heart and a clear mind. Every mindful action, every compassionate response, every moment of choosing presence over distraction is a moment of living an awakened life. This is the great work and the great joy of our human existence. Our journey began in the quiet desperation of a sleepless night, with a mind held hostage by the relentless chatter of an inner voice. We felt lost in an inner wilderness, a storm of anxiety, judgment, and fear. From that place of suffering, we embarked on a path of discovery. We gave a name to our inner turmoil, the monkey mindand. With the Buddha's timeless wisdom as our guide, we began to understand its nature, not as a personal failing, but as a universal human condition. We learned to anchor ourselves in the simple, profound reality of the breath, finding a point of stability amidst the chaos. From that anchor, we turned our awareness inward, exploring the landscapes of our own bodies, learning to listen to their stored tensions. We learned to watch the great waves of emotion, anger, fear, and joy rise and fall without being swept away by them. We sat on the bank of the mind's river and watched our thoughts float by like clouds, realizing, in a moment of liberating insight, that we are not the clouds, but the vast, open sky in which they appear. We investigated the fundamental nature of reality itself, seeing the truth of impermanence in every passing moment, and discovering in the truth of no self that we are not a solid, fragile entity, but a flowing, dynamic process. This led us to the beautiful and healing vision of interconnectedness, the understanding that we are not isolated islands, but threads in a single, magnificent tapestry of life. With this wisdom as our ground, we began the work of the heart, learning to replace the voice of the inner critic with the boundless warmth of loving kindness, the tender touch of compassion, the unselfish delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable, peaceful balance of equanimity. We brought this awakened heart into our actions, our work, and our words, transforming our entire life into our practice. The core of this entire journey has been a fundamental shift in relationship. We did not set out to wage war on our inner voice, to crush it into submission. Instead, we learned to befriend it. We learned that behind its frantic chatter was often a frightened energy, a deep-seated need to be safe and loved. We learned not to silence a tyrant, but to soothe a scared child. The compassionate sleep we sought, is not just about what happens when your head hits the pillow at night. It is a metaphor for a way of being. It is the ability to live with a mind and a heart that are fundamentally at rest, even while engaged in the dynamic and often challenging dance of life. Peace, we have discovered, is not a final destination. It is not a prize to be won or a perfect state to be achieved. It is a quality of presence that we cultivate within ourselves, moment by moment, breath by breath. You now have the tools. The map has been laid out before you. You are no longer a helpless victim of your own mind. You have discovered that within you lies a source of stillness, a refuge of awareness that is deeper and more real than any passing thought or emotion. You are the sky that holds the weather. You are the mountain that is unmoved by the wind. You are the wise and gentle presence that can cradle your own suffering with infinite kindness. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That step is not in the future. It is here. It is now. It is this breath.